That's pretty much my first meal for the day. So I haven't had any food, just a coffee in the morning, and that was it. So I've been running around like a goose with my head chopped off. So that's my first meal, guys. Thanks for being here. So you're going to basically, that's beef bacon, nice beef bacon with some fried eggs. So I'm going to get stuck into that shortly. Oops. Thanks, guys, for being here. Gary, thanks, mate. Jonathan, Stefan. Everybody's got their issues. Okay. Yeah, I actually did a milk, Richard. Sort of I warmed up a bit of milk and I actually put a bit of coffee in it, just a bit, a tinge, and sort of mixed it up. So it's a sort of a very light. I probably need to get some better sleep tonight. So I'm functional tomorrow at work. So thanks, Lilith. Yep. Yeah, he's I basically visited him tonight and this afternoon, and I left in the evening. That's why I'm late. Got back. This only takes about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to actually do. So the moment I walked in the door, I started putting the beef bacon in to cook and the eggs, started frying them, put some salt on, and then started, taking my coat off and doing all the other sort of stuff and trying to put things away. And yeah, so thanks, Zach. Seal, good to have you here. Oh yeah, I know. I've forgot everything. Here he is. You forgot him. You're not missing much in that regard. Oh, Roy needs a bit of food. He's hungry as. So I haven't had anything since this morning, just a coffee. So I am freaking starving. It's my evening meal, Tom. Oh, for the others, yeah. Richard is even further in the evening than me. He's 8:30. This is 6:30. I usually eat a bit earlier than this, but it's just been what it is. And I usually suppose circadian rhythms. Nope, not tonight. Annika, hello. So, made some delicious beef bacon jerky in the air fryer yesterday. Yum. So easy. Yeah, exactly. It is. DJ Projectus. Hello, Kitty. How are you? Dad sends his regards and thanks you for passing on. I passed on your regards to him. Did you get the plumber out eventually out of your house? I'm into both bacons. I love beef bacon, but I love pork bacon as well. So I'm a fan of both. Good day, Richard. Alex. Richard. God. My brain's on Richard because I was looking at before. Oops. What do I do now? Thanks, mate. Yeah. He's seems to be, his heart rate's come down below the 100, which is good. That's a good sign. And they found, the doctors did some tests. They found 0 clotting in his lungs, or anywhere else. He's got good blood perfusion. His arteries are working really well. And there's no problems. It's really just this reaction in the veins where we've had this sort of, and the reason why these clots they're moving slowly is because veins aren't under pressure. But the reason why these veins got clotted, they've got no idea. And they're looking at genetics. They're going to do some genetic tests and a few other tests that they want to do. You know, I've told them it's basically the jab. You know, anyway, they can live with their cognitive dissonance. I'm more interested in basically making sure that we get a protocol for Dad for the next couple of months to clear out all those clotting factors. And if I have to go over there and force him to fast for 3 days, that's what's going to happen. He's going to basically reset himself and do a few other things, as I told him tonight. So I've laid down the law, and he said, yes, I'm not going to. So I think the scare was good enough to force him to rethink some things, some decisions that he's making in life. I was about to say, don't forget the glasses. Yeah, I know. When you're in a hurry, you're all over the place. You just walk in, you know, because remember, I've got the lights here, which are all circadian rhythms. Until I get in front of a screen, there's no blue light in the house to be bothered. So, yeah. But I forgot my own protocol. So somebody's gone for the sardine option. So Bart admitted now that he's eating blueberries on a regular basis and not even in season as it's winter over there. Quite interesting. Well, you know, I think Pim's doing it. So he lives in a household. I don't know, getting orders. One thing that I will never do is eat fruit. Fruit for me has been banned completely. As far as I'm concerned, it's the worst deuterium food, and it's fructose as well. I'm zero tolerant to fructose. I'm a bit more tolerant to glucose, but definitely zero tolerant to fructose, especially with my genetics. Which the choline pathway, but I've done a video before on covered that and talked a bit about my genetics, so I'm not going to do it now. But you know, I mean, obviously blueberries are the big thing, but you know, we shouldn't be doing it. Yeah, he knows basically, but remember that I cheat as well. I do things probably inappropriate. We all do. So yesterday, basically, I went through a tub of ice cream because usually when I'm stressed, I usually eat to relieve my stress. So others, like Hello Kitty, she just starves herself when she's stressed. She'll lose a couple of kilos. So people react differently. For social reasons, they behave differently. You know, that doesn't invalidate the science, the N15 data or anything. You know, what people do, that's their business as far as I'm concerned. You know, he knows quite clearly. He's a physiologist. He knows quite clearly what it does and all that. At the end of the day, we all justify different things: tobacco smoking, drinking alcohol, or doing a whole lot of different things. And some of us use B vitamins and choline, stuff like that, to sort of mitigate it slightly, the alcohol, that is. But we know exactly what we're doing. So, you know, it's not, you know, Stefan, you need to do what you need to do for your own body. Whatever you do, you take the science, all the stuff that we talk, the biohacks or whatever, and then you implement it for yourself. Don't follow gurus. Not me, not Bart, not anyone. You come to us for information, knowledge, understanding the science, how our physiology works. Nobody's, you know, anybody that tells you that, oh, they've never cheated, they're lying to you. You know, in this sort of food environment and with all the other pressures and whatever, it's nonsense. Is it inappropriate? Yes, it is. But is it the worst thing you could do? Seed oils are definitely the worst, you know, but we need to keep that in mind. Don't put people on pedestals. We need to put good research on pedestals. People like me are just conduits. You know, we've got the capacity to pull it all together and work out the intricacy, how things work, and then translate them in a language which you guys can understand. But that doesn't mean that we're just humans. We're just as frail in our behavior, not frail, that's not the right word, but as easily to succumb to things, or, you know, we're not idols to be worshipped. We're not special. We're basically a conduit of information in terms of scientific, you know, what is valid and what isn't. What you do with that information is your business, not mine, not anyone's, yours, because you have to live with the consequences of those decisions. Like Bart will have to live with the consequences of his decisions. I don't tell Bart how to live his life. He doesn't tell me. I don't tell you. I just give you the information. You ask me questions. I've got this. I'll tell you, you know, honestly, this is what you need to do. If you've got these, if you're doing these things, take them out of your diet or whatever, you know, because you're less able to tolerate. But at the end of the day, you have to live with those decisions, whatever you do. You know, it's like myself. I have to live with my decisions. My father, his decisions, he's suffering at the moment due to the consequence of his decisions. So, yeah, that's how it goes. So, anyway, thoughts on hair tissue mineral analysis. Is it expensive? Is it worth? No, it's not worth it. It can be expensive in some places, but do you really need to do it? If you've got good, you know, I usually go, if I've got my kidneys are functioning properly, my liver is functioning properly, my gallbladder is functioning properly, you know, I'm eating species appropriately, your body will eventually clean out and sort out everything, you know. So, you know, when you throw in taurine, which comes from animal foods, it actually regulates all these ions and will force excess excretion, as long as the systems that do the excretion and the detoxification are working properly. That's all you need to do. You know, all the other stuff, sort of things, I say, loaf, you know, don't waste your money. Fix your lifestyle and diet and stuff like that, or your environment if you're exposing yourself to unnecessarily to certain toxins. And then basically, most things will sort themselves out, unless you've got quite a lot of damage, and then it may take a bit longer. So, yeah, but I wouldn't waste my time unless you've had an exposure and you want to know whether you've had an exposure. And then you may have to up slightly your selenium as a chelator to chelate out that sort of stuff, and may have to support your liver with a bit extra taurine and choline to basically improve the detoxification pathways. You know, those are the sort of things you'd be looking at. Most of the other sort of compounds, you know, I mean, really, you know, you could probably use activated charcoal when you're not eating, in non-eating windows, like early in the morning before you eat, because you usually eat a couple of hours, and you can actually have that, or later in the evening. So, you know, after you've had a couple of hours after a meal, and then you're likely to sort of excrete some of this sort of stuff, and you can bind it in your gut, you know, to sort of accelerate the removal. But, you know, at the end of the day, if your detox pathways are working properly, you should clear it out given time. trying to eat large amounts. I'm making a mess of myself as well. So let me just cut it into bite sizes so I can actually get through it much easier. Small bits. Need to sharpen my Japanese knife. Hasn't been sharpened for a while. We used to do a much better cutting job. Well, at least I can't cut myself, but anyway. Oops. Cut down. Oh, some egg. I love my eggs. Anyway, yeah, so that's... Well, I've still got the clots, my dear. Still got the clots. So, that's going to take up to 6 months. And I'm actually need to speak with wait until the other tests have happened. At least we know there's nothing moving into the upper torso, so nothing in the lungs, nothing in the brain, nothing in the heart, nothing that we have to worry about at this stage. And the clots are pretty much through the left leg in a couple of different places. So, and because it's in the veins and not in the arteries, it's not under pressure to move. So if it was in the arteries, it would have, blood, heart. It's, you've got high pressure in the actual heart, and his blood pressure would have been much higher. So it's down into the normal range of 120. When I left him yesterday, it was 122. So obviously, he usually can get it a bit lower than that. He's usually 115, 112, and that, so that he's up to that. That's still a bit of pressure in his system, but that's understandable. I mean, he's got, some swelling and stuff like that. That will cause some level of raising in the blood pressure, but he's still in the lower range. So that's a combination of, him doing taurine now for quite some time, and that's helped a lot improve that. Okay, Chrissa. Hi, everyone. Finally made it to a Harry live stream. Yeah, you did. I mean, yeah. And I'm in a disorganized, shambled state as well. Sorry about that. Usually it's a bit more professional normally. I'm eating on, which I never do. And yeah, so it's been a bit of a horror show the last couple of days with my father in the hospital. So yeah, I hope everybody understands. Oh, God. Mate, mouse, all this sort of stuff. Could you imagine with fingers and stuff like that? It'd be a mess here. DJ Projections, I wouldn't want to visit your place. Is that how you eat? Do you get on all fours and just scoff into the plate? God, it'd be messy. God. I thought Richard went animal. I'm not eating blueberries as my bushes have no fruit yet. Should be that simple, Stefan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell the bald man, he's letting the side down. We're going to shred his card, his carnivore card, give him back little pieces. Gunda, how are you? Yes, we're having a few laughs on here, as usual. The builder completed the tiles and we'll be back tomorrow. Okay, so you've still got one more day. Does he need to leave the keys with me or not? Or are you coming in? You coming back early, or what? What's the story? Oops. Nathan, how are you, mate? Yep. Just received the B vitamins and dietary you recommended with my. Yep. Just wondering what dosage is for gut repair. We just take one. That's all. We don't want to go to high doses. We just take one. We take the vitamin D, 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, and we take the dietary, just one a day, and that's it. And then we just allow the body with the taurine in as well, a couple of grams of taurine, at least 6 grams, and we just allow things to regulate and the good gut bugs to sort of become more pronounced in the system. Just takes time, patience, and things usually start resolving. There's a couple of issues. There can be in a small percentage of people, there can be a number of bacteria that can misbehave. So if you're feeling any really strange symptoms, let me know. So if you, after a month, start getting sort of certain symptoms where things are getting worse, not better, then you may have And then what we need to do there, there's two options for that. One option is to basically, take the ruteri, put it in milk kefir, and ferment it and actually produce more of it to suppress this little bugger. That's one option. Option one, which I actually like. I like that option. Necro Kitty did that. So, she with Luke here, they do a bit. Luke, you're here. Did you get any sleep? Did you sleep, mate? God almighty. These young people, they never listen. Anyway, neither did I, so I understand. Yeah, so pretty much go with it and see how you feel. It's a combination. This obviously the B vitamins for 3 months, with a ruteri for 6 months, with the actual the vitamin D for the 3 months at that level. Then you can bring it down to 5,000 if you wish. I don't know. Is it winter over there where you are? So it depends. If you're going into winter, you might as well stay a bit higher, because we've got this. Even though COVID is around, it does have an immunosenescent effect. It does actually age the immune system. And so I like to keep in winter in particular, when I'm going to be more vulnerable to C19, I prefer to basically have better protection of the immune system with a bit more taurine in the system. So that's the reason. Normally it's about 4 grams, but we put it a bit up, especially in the winter period. Nope, nothing to do with that. Eating fruit is just pleasurable. We've grown accustomed to it for a very long time. Fruit isn't one of those foods that has a lot. Typically fruit doesn't really have a lot of anti-nutrient issues, so it doesn't react in any negative way within the body, Zach. But the sweetness, the tartness in some of the fruit and sweetness combination is it's like, a lot of people like sweet and sour. The tartness of the fruit, we're talking about traditional fruit now, the tartness and the sweetness, it is a thing that is enjoyable. So it's not that it's necessary, it's just enjoyable. Structured water, basically it's high deuterium water. So it's not a good water to put in your body. So, the plants concentrate deuterium into the fruit. That is why it's the worst carbohydrate you can consume, period. Obviously, something like a berry or blueberry or a raspberry or a strawberry or stuff like that, they won't have a lot of deuterium content, because they're not as sweet. Actually, the strawberries is actually it's probably over. It was probably had high deuterium in its ancient form, where it's in its modern form, it's actually got a lower sugar content. So it's actually got a lower deuterium level. So in comparison, and it's got a lot of fisetin. It's just, everything else does when it comes to fisetin is really high. So if you're going to eat any berry, it'd be strawberry that I would consume for the fisetin. I wouldn't consume any other. Simple as that. So people make their choices. Simple as that. For me, I pretty much put a break on all fruit. For me, there's a 0. I'm not interested. So if people want to basically do that sort of stuff, that's fine. I mean, I've got no problems with people putting that sort of stuff in their body. That's fine. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, about my father's sort of, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm assessing to see how we can actually resolve this problem fast. Because this is going to be a problem that's going to affect other people as well. That's the reality. I've heard other people as well at work and outside and online. So it definitely is a problem, this clotting issue. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. So, yeah, look, it's definitely something that I'm looking into, just for not only for Dad, but for everyone else as well, because it's going to be a problem, as you said, for many people. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm actually working. I've been looking into. I'm looking at some of the case studies to try and understand what is happening, because you first have to understand what is actually happening before you can then work out a method to deal with it, which is better than what they offer in many cases, which does have side effects and risks. Some of their options. One option was there's two options. One with blood thinners, and a number of them have different side effects and stuff like that. That's one thing. The other thing is basically doing it's like putting a catheter through, like you would put when you do a test in the heart and stuff like that, but using something like that to basically break up the clot and sort of remove it. But there are risks with those surgical interventions of internal bleeding because he's old. And so, but even for young people, even if you're old, you could be a young person, have very poor, very poor vasculature, and the walls of your veins or arteries may be weak. So, that is a risk, perforating that and causing internal bleeding. And then you're into major operation that they have to basically stabilize you, open you up and rip you open, and sort of try and cleave that artery or vein or whatever, and sort of then start dealing with that problem. So, yeah, solutions aren't easy. We shouldn't be getting into this situation. That's my point. And I think all of you people would agree with that. So I'm quite annoyed, like yourselves, with this situation, but what do we do? The reality is a lot of people bought the narrative and went down that pathway. Jabba the Hutt has been very happy, and he's been very active, especially in the elderly community. And it's because these people grew up. I mean, my father was born in 1935. He saw the modern world. He left a village, and went to the army, then acquired skills like a mechanic, a motor mechanic first, and then a boilermaker welder, then worked for these foreign companies, and then eventually in the sort of as a boilermaker welder in hydro schemes. Then after that, he worked in the shipbuilding industry, and he saw the modern world being built, and he was part of building the modern world. He came to Tasmania. He was involved with the Tasman Bridge, which is one of the biggest bridges here in Hobart. Dad worked on it. So then worked in the hydro schemes, where a lot of the pipes that are welded in all these hydro schemes, practically every single one of them, he's worked on. Bar Taralaya, that was the only one that he didn't work on, because at that stage he had moved to another company, and so he would have if he stayed with the existing company, but then after continued working on some projects for Hydro Tasmania. And then after, Hydroelectric Commission, as it was called back then. And then he went to another company, which was in the city, mechanical service in Murray Street. And Dad is opposite from where the RACTs, anybody that's in Hobart knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was just up a little driveway. There's now some sort of company there and it's next to a driving school. And it's in the rear. And basically that company used to build transformers. So all the green transformers around the city, Dad welded those because they were very fine. And he was qualified for basically aerospace as well, so he could do very fine welding. So he's contributed quite a bit to the development of Australia and Tasmania, let alone quite a lot of development in the early days of hydro schemes and shipbuilding in Greece. So he's been one of those people that have given to the society in an important way. Oh, you mean that? I'm Greek after all, Stefan, remember? What do you expect me to hold the fork any other way? Great, Lilith. And you're also in remission from cancer. Everything's going your way, which is great. It's great news, So, and you're basically getting your body to start working properly. Your mitochondria are working properly with all the stuff that we've been doing and you've been doing, so it's great news, that you're feeling great and you're feeling strong and you're starting to shift back. I'm really happy. It gives me reasons to be here because at least I'm making some improvements, helping, otherwise why bother, So for me, I've got a day job. If I couldn't help or contribute or whatever, or pass that information to help people and find biohacks and stuff like that can help people, it's a bloody waste of time, unless you're selling supplements. Then YouTube works for you because you're making money from supplements. Roy Poseidon strikes on blasphemers down with a fork. Yes. Heed this warning, Vagoons. Nice one, DJ Projectors. Problems arise when you don't eat enough. Yes, exactly. Yes, definitely. I still haven't watched that Monty Python. Oh, God. Thought I'd missed something. There's a John Cleese, War on Wokeism. I haven't watched it yet. I watched about 13 minutes of it. I'll actually put it in the description. So it's called John Cleese's War on Wokeism. Came across it a couple of days ago, and I still forgot to. I've still got it at 13 and 58 minutes, and 30 minutes and 58 seconds. Get it right, Harry? Yes. So some people get a few. Anyway. Always a room for a little extra bacon, Alex. Yeah, it's definitely me forgetting my food. It's getting cold. I just, it's a bit. This is why I've never done this online before. So I'll mute myself and I'll quickly eat a bit extra to get it out of the way. So I don't think you guys want to see me munching away like mad or hear me. We are back. Yeah, you keep on telling me that. So you're not going to basically join me for a night of gin? No? That milk tastes nice. I put just a tad little bit of coffee in it and warmed up the milk, and it's just sort of a light coffee milk. Oh, well. Nice. Yummy. Yeah, Lilith is still, she's healing. She's in the healing mode. We just want to keep her basically that healing mode. We just want to keep it simple, nothing complicated. So what do I think of grounding? Taking electrons, a negative charge from the ground, and lowering your positive charge. It's not exactly that. It's sort of that's how it's actually coined, but that's actually wrong, because the universe maintains electroneutrality. Otherwise, you'd have these sparks in your body and around us. So there is an electroneutrality in the universe and in our bodies as well. So it's really taking up more electrons. What is an antioxidant? An electron donor. That's what it is. So all grounding does is actually increases the uptake of electrons to stabilize tissue. So it's sort of a natural antioxidant from Mother Nature for free from the earth itself. That's all it is. So is there evidence? Yes, there is, but it's limited. Nobody's going to do the research on it. And it's usually the companies that are actually producing the mats and the grounding equipment and all that do it. That doesn't mean it's bad research. They still show that in the experimental subjects which they use, which are primarily animals, they show that basically there is a reduction in oxidative stress. So we know that basically the animal is taking up those electrons, stabilizing tissue, no different than vitamin E, vitamin C, glutathione, alpha-lipoic acid, all these sort of antioxidants that are basically out there. I won't go through every single one of them, but all these basically that are electron donors. They donate electrons and stabilize. The loss of an electron makes something reactive. And so that is not losing an electron can make something, put it under oxidative stress. So basically adding those electrons back can stabilize. It also has another benefit in the endothelium. So in terms of nitric oxide synthesis. So in your arteries, you've got this pericellular matrix, and that exists around the lipoproteins, any other thing that's floating through your bloodstream, your red blood cells and stuff like that. And around the coating, there's a pericellular matrix. There's a little hairline fraction, and they've got these little sugar molecules. They are glycosylated, these structures. And this pericellular matrix can get a negative charge, and that negative charge can actually be increased from grounding. And that means then that you also, by creating this negative charge both in the endothelium and around these things stick less. There is less platelet, there's less aggregation or platelet aggregation or stickiness in the bloodstream. So it has that effect as well because of this negative charge that is, and an increase in nitric oxide synthesis. So, which you can actually do. So, which increases vasodilation. So it improves the vascular tree's function. So it has positive effects in that regard. Now, how much can that counteract some bad lifestyle choices? You know, those sort of things have not been measured in real humans. So if you keep your lifestyle diet clean, you're going to get more benefits. If you don't, you're going to get less. So it's not a panacea. It's not basically, I'll do this and I'll just basically hit the vegetable oils and hit the alcohol and do this and that and whatever, smokes and start smoking cigars and drinking whiskeys and whatever. You know, I mean, it has a bit of an effect, but it's not basically like, you know, it's going to prevent when you're putting in massive amounts of things that are actually causing damage. So we have to, yeah. So if you do more damage than the antioxidant capacity from grounding or other things that you nutritional wise or whatever are taking, or supplements or whatever, you're still going to get damage. You'll probably get less damage by grounding, but you're still going to get damage. So, you know, it's not a license to go out and do inappropriate things and say, oh, I'm going to be protected. No, what it is it's an extra layer of improving your basically physiology, you know, making it, reducing the oxidative stress and inflammation in your physiology. So it's got those positive effects, but let's not over exaggerate things either. You know, it's a synergy of a good diet, good lifestyle, good stress management, all sorts of things that play a role, because stress, that increases oxidative stress as well. So there's a lot of things that do. So the more things you do, the better you'll be, the less it's the other way. So it's a pendulum in a sense. How much you want to be in one direction or the other. So, but it doesn't mean, you know, because for humanity, for most of its existence, we've grounded. We were grounded. Basically, we walked barefoot or we walked in leather soles. It's only in the since the petrochemical revolution, so we're talking about plastic soles on shoes. They appeared in mass production probably in the 80s or late 70s since then. So we're talking about 40, maybe 50 years, where many of us have ceased to be grounded. So at least a generation of people have not been grounded. Prior to that, they were grounded to some extent. Even leather shoes and leather soles will allow some level of grounding, you know, because leather is basically the skin of an animal. So it makes contact, it can transmit, you know. So it's the insulator, which is the plastic that's been introduced in shoe manufacturing, which is cheaper, so you can actually mass produce shoes, but then we lost the grounding effect. And that's a more recent thing in the last 40, 50 years. So we've done a lot of things. We changed the diet about, you know, nearly 50 years ago. We stopped grounding nearly 50 years ago. So we've done a lot of things to increase the oxidative stress and reduce the things that actually helped in that area. So, you know, obviously, because of the confounding variables of lifestyle and all that, you're never going to get research which tells you definitively how much, you know, like out of everything you do in life, is that a 10, 20, 30? You know, I don't see it being a 50. 50 is probably more like food is going to play the role of 50. But grounding probably will play maybe a 20, you know, maybe a 15. It's still important, 15% or 20% improvement. Better than nothing, Marlo. You know, so it's not something to be sneezed at. And you can do it quite easily. You can get one of those mats for your computer desk, and you can just have it if you're in an office and you've plugged it in. You've got your arms on the mat, and you're working all day. You're grounded, so you're getting some benefit all day long. You don't need to basically go the next level of putting in your shoes. I did that, but going. So I sort of stopped doing that. I haven't bought regrounding because they're a bit expensive, all those things. So you stick those things on. So I need to now order a mat for work. Small steps, Lilith, small steps. Let's just get the body working properly. Let's get oxidative phosphorylation up. We need to increase energy production. And as we increase energy production, you'll increase healing of your gut lining, healing of many things. And as that happens, then slowly but surely, don't rush things. There's no rush. Let's just heal properly to a level where then the body can better tolerate things, better process things, stuff like that. So that's the key thing. Anyway, Ralna, hey, I'm new to all of this. I didn't understand why Randall cycle activation is only a problem in mixed macros when fat alone can trigger it. Also, hope somebody can help me understand. Thanks. Okay. The difference between a Randall cycle activation with mixed macros, you get this blockading effect which can last up to 3 days in some cases, depending on and it will be different between the different cells. All cells will be in a different state of and a different state of energy influx into inside them, and also a different level of what I call a gradient, the gradient of Randall cycle activation. So, and how long, that means how much energy is in there and how much energy substrate is in the bloodstream will determine the signaling that will be sent to the cells to say, there's quite a bit in here. We need to engage engage this state a bit longer until it goes through the liver and gets converted to fat and gets stored, gets removed, this excess energy in the system. So that's the Randall cycle is actually a very helpful thing if you want to fatten up. So as a ancient person in the winter, before the winter started, in the late summer, early autumn, there was fruit around and very fatty animals, and it fattened up through the warm months. And you go and hunt those, and you eat fruit as well, and you end up storing fat more rapidly. There's a fish in the Amazon twice a year. It actually comes down from the depth up to when the Amazon actually gets, because I think there are 2 seasons where the entire Amazon basin sort of becomes flooded. And at that stage, it's to different degrees, different parts of the Amazon, obviously. What happens is there are a number of fish. They come up, they eat fruit, they fatten up on the fructose, because we know fructose creates liver fat. And unless you've got choline to export it out of the liver, it accumulates and builds up, and you'll get quite a bit of fatty liver and storage as a consequence of that. So engaging the Randall cycle can have benefits. Now, you can, in terms of having like really excess fats and all that, that is like for a small period of time. Once the clearance has happened, you'll get more dragged in. So the gradient is way lower, the triggering effect. So, and that's because what happens is you actually upregulate one pathway and downregulate the other pathway to such a level that the body can actually cope with bringing in, so the influx and gradient will be much lower. All it will be is sort of it's a low grade activation, as it's saying, oh, there's we've got too much enough here. Let's oxidize this, and then we'll take in additional. But it's not blockaded. It's sort of more like a temporary, lower gradient, temporary type thing that actually happens. And the same thing if you're in sugar burning mode, if you're like a low fat state, so that's the two states that basically normally disengage the random cycle unless you go into excess levels, which is really hard to do, especially if you're basically really efficient in either one of them to basically pull those substrates through. So yes. So I wouldn't actually worry too much on the fat side on either one of them in that regard. So that's the way I sort of view it. There are, other complications. Mitochondrial dysfunction can lower the gradient. That means you can activate at a much lower gradient of energy influx, the Randall cycle, if you've got less capacity to oxidize it. So if you've done more mitochondrial damage and you've got a lot of reverse Krebs cycle activating happening, and you're in a growth stage where you're pulling H2 out of the cytosol, which is the inner part of the actual cell. You're pulling deuterium, basically. You can drive growth factors, and so under those sort of circumstances, you become less efficient. You drop, basically, especially if you go full glycolytic, and you're basically just burning sugar, oxidizing, sugar, then under those circumstances, your efficiency of mitochondrial efficiency can drop from 40% down to 10% compared to oxidative phosphorylation. So really, there is a gradient, and that can be varied by a number of factors. Sort of your muscle mass can affect, so your metabolic rate. So is your muscle mass. So when you think metabolic rate, think muscle mass. So more muscle mass, higher metabolic rate. Low muscle mass, lower metabolic rate. So the biggest losers, they actually lose more muscle than fat. As a consequence, their metabolic rate goes down, and so they're stuffed. So we carnies, on the other hand, eat more leucine and taurine, and that actually increases our protein synthesis, which means we get bigger muscles, and also means we push up our metabolic rate. So there's a bit of an advantage there as well in that regard. But it's pretty much that when you take in both macros, you will affect the body, actually just will downregulate both pathways because there's too much of both substrates. But when one dominates against the other, it will downregulate only the one pathway. Why it does it? Don't ask me. Nobody knows. It just happens. We know in terms of physiology that the GLUT receptors will be downregulated when you're eating more fat, and the CD36 receptor will be upregulated. So you'll be taking in more long-chain fats to oxidize. Simple as that, So those enzymatic pathways will break it, force it through the Krebs cycle, and into the mitochondria. And away we go in producing, both water and energy in that regard. Remember, the Krebs cycle is a water production system when it is rotating clockwise. When it's anti-clockwise in the reverse, that's when it's not doing that. That's when it's pulling deuterium and pushing up growth pathways. That's what happens to a lot of people who have got deranged mitochondria, and then may even end up with cancer. So what we need to do is we need to lower the threshold of mitochondrial damage from deuterium, improve our sleep and stuff like that to get better melatonin to repair our mitochondria. And the stuff that needs to be knocked out, we use senolytics. I've done a whole lot of videos. Under the cancer ones, you'll find a lot of those videos. There's a playlist. It goes into all that sort of stuff, additional stuff. But yeah, that's fairly it on the Randall cycle as far as goes. It's based on nutrient. It detects nutrient influxes of energy, substrates, and the body signals appropriately. And then there'll be signaling of hormones and all sorts of things that will be activated and play in, and receptor sites will be down-regulated or up-regulated, in that regard. So that's how it works. And if the noise coming from insulin is much higher, this insulin resistance is just signaling. That's all it is. They need it. They use all these fancy words. It's basically amplified insulin signaling. That's all it is. Insulin resistance. They need to name everything. Insulin isn't a bad guy. It basically is just signaling and saying there's too much substrates in here. The insulin to glucagon changes and says, we need to deal with this. That's what it's telling the body. You've just done the wrong thing. So, yes, but people call it all sorts of things because they don't understand. Most people don't understand the Randall cycle. But just remember that you will have a major downregulation of one receptor site when you're in low fat or low carb state. And when you're mixing, you will affect both receptor sites. And the level of gradient will depend on the influx of energy at any one time. So it's pretty much the simplest way of putting it together. Hope that made sense. I love eggs as well. I eat them all day. Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense out there. I mean, Lukey mentioned to me that one guy was actually saying that, if people eat eggs long enough, they'll get some reactivity to them. Nonsense. I've been eating eggs for ages, never stopped, never had any reaction or whatever. The other guy that was eating 25 eggs a day for multiple decades, it's nonsense. We first have to get into a deranged state where we've got leaky gut and many other problems and all that, or underlying genetic sensitivities, which we've always had. And that's a different thing altogether. But, these generalized nonsense that people talk about and make out, yes. Sue lamb has 3 times more taurine than beef or pork, but chicken has a little more than lamb. Yes. You've been doing a bit of research. And fish has more than all of them put together. So, that's the Japanese paradox, basically. Why, so, well, part of it anyway. But yes, it does. I love my lamb and pork. They're my 2 favorite meats. As I said, I don't eat a lot of beef. I eat occasionally, but I'm not a big beef eater. I like beef patties. Yes, I'm a big beef patty person. But steaks, yeah, I like them. Don't get me wrong. It's not I don't like them. But if you put 3 steaks in front of me, like a pork, a beef, and a lamb steak, which one I'll pick? I won't pick the beef one. But whether I pick the pork one or the lamb one would depend on what I ate the previous day. Did I have lamb yesterday? I'll have pork. Did I have pork yesterday? I'll have lamb, basically. So you're welcome, mate. That was Raina that asked me the previous question on the Randall cycle. Yes. Yeah, it can be a bit more complicated, as even Bart says, because there is the deuterium side that actually changes the... you have to think mitochondrial damage is going to lower the threshold of efficiency, energy utilization of the cell. So you can go from 40% down to 10% because you've stuffed up your mitochondria with a lot of seed oils and refined sugars and stuff like that. Your threshold of Randall cycle activation is going to be much lower. This is why a lot of people with only a bit of indiscretions in the middle age, that they've got more mitochondrial damage, they can't lose weight. They go, why? Because you've got poor oxidative phosphorylation capacity. That's why. So we need to fix the mitochondria. We need to fix the energy system with our little taurine and, better sleep, amplifying melatonin with taurine, lowering blue blocking glasses, all this sort of stuff, and improving mitochondrial function. And then when we do that, then the threshold of Randall cycle gradient goes up. So it means that, in order to hit that threshold, it takes a bit more energy substrates than normal. So these are the nuancing parts, why somebody that's young, 20 years old, can lose weight just like that, and somebody that's 50 or 60 struggles, and has more mitochondrial damage from inappropriate things they've done most of their life. Unless you're a camel, and then you're a deuterium depleting machine, and you don't even show your age. Anyway, as I said earlier in my earlier live stream, if I know it's bullshit, this reincarnation, I don't believe it, honestly. But if it did exist, and if people do believe, I'm not criticizing people's beliefs. It's just I don't believe it. I think it's bullshit personally, but if other people have got religious reasons where they believe, that's fine. I'm not gonna, we'll disagree on theological issues. This is just nutrition on the nutritional side. But I would want to come back as a camel, deuterium depleting machine, always looking youthful, and I can spit on people as well and get away with it. Anyway, dark thoughts. He wants to be a camel so he can spit on people. You recommend taking taurine an hour or so before workout, 90 minutes to be precise. I want saturation. What I'm trying to do is actually provide it has a mild myostatin inhibition. So it lowers myostatin slightly, and you'll get, once you've done your exercise, and then you basically, in that right after the exercise, we want to put in the protein and the leucine, and that leucine is going to be magnified. So the protein synthesis is going to be magnified. It's all about building muscle faster and quicker and bigger is what we're talking about here. So it's strategically using creatine half an hour before is fine. Taurine an hour and a half. It just seems to take a bit longer to saturate the tissue. I just wanted to get everywhere. There's taurine receptors all over the body. But now, the research is based on the sort of how quickly it moves through rats. We're not rats, obviously, but it's a mammal. And I'm going, we've got no experiments on humans. So precautionary principle, let's just use that method, because I want to bring down myostatin slightly, inhibit it, so we can amplify the muscle protein synthesis after the exercise. That's the purpose of it. And also, it can actually allow you to go a bit longer. So it has that benefit as well. So creatine will give you that extra sort of on the energy side, and basically on the supporting the ability to do more on the taurine side, especially if you want to really push the, that sort of anabolism type side of things for protein synthesis. So that's what we're talking about here. Just for those who don't understand, myostatin is a thing that if it's very low as a child, there are kids that have got very low myostatin and they actually just become very muscular without it training. You don't even have to train. No exercise required. Absolutely none. Those kids should be, because obviously they also get a bit of remodeling of their heart, which taurine prevents. So that's why it is a mild myostatin inhibitor, but also prevents remodeling, which is great because it does both things. It's like a Swiss Army knife. So it's the type of myostatin inhibitor that I like, because it doesn't affect the heart, which is the key thing. It protects the heart muscle. See you, Kate. thanks for the donation as well. Take care. Anyway, so now work out usually, yep, exercise usually between 10 and 12, but you said also not to take taurine before 11. I usually, if I'm going to do any of my anabolic exercise, I usually do them in the afternoon. That's when I do them. You get better results then. So I do walking earlier, but I don't do any weightlifting until the afternoon. So, and that's what most bodybuilders have been doing for years. You get better results. So yeah, so then it's not a non-issue. Look, you can take it before. The reason I'll explain to you why I actually say don't take it before 11 has nothing to do with, your protein synthesis and all that. What taurine does, it raises slightly insulin. Okay. So by raising slightly insulin and IGF-1, it's great for the anabolism side to support the leucine effect. But at the same time, it has, even though there are no amino acids at all, it will inhibit slightly autophagy. So, so in a sense, your time restricted feeding, usually you don't get a lot of autophagy anyway in time restricted feeding, but you'll suppress it even further. That's the only reason. If that's unimportant to you, that's fine. That's not a problem, but that's the reason I do it. I think I've mentioned it in terms of what I do. Sometimes you have to be careful on the social media side, how you phrase things. So, and sometimes I go, I do this, I do it this way and all that. So where I'm saying, I believe this is a really good way of doing it, but without saying it, because, the censor board and the way things operate. That's the only reason. Sometimes I become a bit more adventurous. Sometimes I hold back a bit, depending on the amount of censorship that's flowing around in the YouTubia world at any one time, because it does vary. It's weird. I've done videos, Stefan, that basically I thought they shouldn't be demonetized and got demonetized. And even when I actually objected, and other videos where they didn't. And ones that basically I thought, I'm gonna argue against it, and I suspect they're still gonna, because it was C19 related, and they allowed them, and it was done by human, that was not a computer. I go, that was a bit strange, but I did have the studies and stuff like that in those videos backing myself up, so I wasn't saying anything. I was just confirming what they were saying in there, wasn't, and so they couldn't actually argue that. But still, I was surprised that they didn't censor it. So, yeah, it's a bit, maybe it's, depending on who you get to do the censoring, some people may have a different threshold of censorship mentality. I don't know. Yeah. Harry, think I picked up a cough after hitting the town for my 22nd. Would a fast clear it faster, or just wait out on a clean diet? Yeah, on a clean diet. If it's a virus, you need to eat. Bacteria is what we fast for bacteria. The whole thing about, the only reason I recommend is C19 has immunocompromising effects. The spikes in particular seem to basically cause a certain level of immunosenescence. That means they age the immune system slightly. This is what kills you in the end, an aged immune system, which has got higher levels of cytokines, which T cytokines, which, will potentially cause if they're not regulated properly with vitamin D, but still, even if they're, they still can cause a lot of, let's say, oxidative stress to some extent. We can mitigate that with a bit of taurine in older age. But when you've got younger, naive T cells, which is what young people have, and they rarely die from things, infections, because they've got more naive T cells that don't overreact, don't create excessive cytokines, are still learning and stuff like that. Now, obviously, we know that I've done videos covering that vitamin D, new stem cells, and taurine activates them in the thymus, so you get more naive T cells, and we change the composition and all that. So fasting sort of helps that, sort of, let's trash the old immune system. So once we're over it, trash it, or we've done, something we shouldn't do, that injection type thing. And then we basically want to clear out any damaged parts of the immune system, and then rebuild a new one, do a 3-day fast, and then basically ramp up the vitamin D, ramp up the taurine, so we can actually build a new, healthier, younger immune system. So next time around, we'll be better protected. And so I usually do a bit of that, usually because I can't be bothered doing 3-day fast, but I'm fat adapted. Do not do this if you're not fat adapted. I do a 1.5 days dry fast, or 2-day dry fast, 48 hours. But I can do it because I'm fat adapted, so I can switch in and I don't get dehydrated. If you're not fully fat adapted, you're not going to produce enough water from your fat cells. Forget it. You've got to do the long one, unfortunately. So these are the sort of things. Anyway, Chris, how do we improve mitochondrial function apart from low deuterium water, which is very expensive? Look, I know. Don't have to tell me. I'm well aware of that. Well, bacon has the lowest in terms of long chain fats. It's down to, like, bacon's about, the 113 parts per million, and pork's 115. I still don't get it. How bacon, it may be that part of where the bacon comes from the body is lower. Tallow is about 120 to 122. 120 if it's grass-fed, it can be 119, 122 to 123 if it's grain-fed and finished. Then you've got, it can vary from place to place as well. There are other factors. I mean, these are just rubbery figures, approximates. But really, as long as we keep below the 130, over time we will improve. But the lower the threshold of deuterium, the better. So you'll be able to restore oxidative phosphorylation and improve it. The other thing is, we definitely do the taurine part, because one, the taurine helps with reducing reactive oxygen species and damage inside the mitochondria. It also improves the folding of proteins, so it means that these enzymatic pathways work better, because protein folding is very important for proper enzymatic functions. Because remember, there's a whole lot of enzymatic steps, catalytic processes that are happening in these different parts of the mitochondria, the different steps from, right through from either glycolysis or lipolysis, right down to the Krebs cycle. There is a whole lot of enzymatic steps, and so they need to be working properly, efficiently as well. Obviously you need the efficiency. The other nice thing about when it comes to taurine, it improves the Krebs cycle roughly. Look, this is rubbery figures, it can cut from 10 to 30% the efficiency. The other nice thing about it is it reduces reactive oxygen species via complex 1. So one, it clears out sugar much faster out of the system. It prevents it going into lactate, pushes it into the Krebs cycle, pushes it through and to be oxidized way more efficiently. So it's got these advantages. That's why it's better than metformin in what it does without the side effects. But it also repairs a lot of this damage that happens from reactive oxygen species. It also in the evening, that's why I take a bit in the evening, it lowers cortisol levels, and it amplifies melatonin. Obviously, blue light can be an issue in the evening. That can actually raise cortisol as well. So that can actually counteract some of the taurine effects. So blue light blocking some level of that is important as well. So it's multifactorial, multiple factors that are at play for mitochondrial function. It's not just one thing. Deuterium is, I would say, at the heart of it. Because really, basically, what is food? Food gets broken down basically and stripped, and you combine it with, the carbons. You combine those and just breathe them out as carbon dioxide. You take in the hydrogen ions and use the protons and the electrons through the electron chain in this, quantum machine to produce energy, ATP. So fundamentally, what we're doing is we're stripping away. So, we want to reduce the amount of neutrons that go in there that can bust those motors, because really that's what it is. More deuterium, and through the Krebs cycle, if you can't deuterionate, remove those H2s and push them back into the cytosol, which reverse actually pulls them back into the mitochondria, and increases the damage and the pushing up of the growth factors. So really we need to work very hard at lowering. And look, I wish there was options with deuterium depleted water. It was cheaper. It is damn expensive. I agree with you. It is really prohibitive for most people. I just recommend it for people, that have got cancer and stuff like that. I say, well, you've got heaps of money. If I, even myself, I usually use Evian water. So for my coffees, well, this is milk, but for my coffees, when I do coffees, I use the Evian water. So that's EVIAN. It's an alpine water that comes. It's a bit like the Italian Pellegrino. That has 149 parts per million. Some places it can be down 148. The Evian is about 146. And tap water is 155. Sugar is 155, or slightly below that, or slightly above that. So you get up to 160. And seed oils can be up to 255. So that's just massive. Beyond the safe zone is 130. So 130. This is why I say hydrate with fat, not with water. No tribal people do. They don't carry water. They're not idiots. They've upregulated their antidiuretic hormones by being fat adapted. So that's the fundamental difference. So when you utilize fat as your primary energy and water production, you will over time improve your mitochondrial function and efficiency. But it takes time, unfortunately, So look, carnitine helps. A lot of things in animal, a lot of different amino acids and all that have antioxidant effects. A lot of the, in there, even, just think of pimples and sort of acne and stuff like that, lysine, you get cream, you put that on and sorts it out. So, a lot of the amino acids, they do have a lot of different benefits in the body as well in that regard. But fundamentally, you can put some of this sort of stuff in. You can put taurine in to help, repair over time and stuff like that. But really, fundamentally, the most best approach is not to put the stuff in that does the damage. So really, it's really to lower the amount of deuterium-loaded foods. So the less sugar, the less, especially seed oils, should not be in the diet. That is mitochondrial poison. Simple as that. At the deuterium levels that it is, you can forget it. The body can't deuterionate, can't lower the deuterium threshold. It's way too high. So once you're actually over 160, it's really becoming difficult. And as you get older, your efficiency drops. Your energy capacity to generate energy, to heal, And so your threshold of mitochondrial tolerance or ability to remove deuterium reduces. So the older you get, the more stricter you have to be, the cleaner you have to keep the diet if you want to maintain good mitochondrial function into old age and age gracefully and with a lot of energy compared to a lot of what older people now are doing. They can't even get off their bum. You know, they literally have to be held up from their seat. It's pretty bad out there. Bjorn, how are you, mate? Good to see you here. It's been a while. As long as there are no temptations in the house, I'm fine. Yeah, I keep all temptations out. If I bring in any temptations, you know, I know I'm going to pay for it. When I buy alcohol, I buy it outside and it goes to my brother Sean's place. And we have it there and it stays there. He goes, do you want to take it with you? Nah, I'm leaving it. You can have it. I leave. You know, if you don't want it, put it down the drain. Don't give it to me. So, yes, that's one of my vices. I haven't done ice cream for ages. You know, he knew that I was really stressed and not feeling happy with the situation with Dad. And so that's why I got the stuff. He knew, yeah, Harry will eat a tub. And I did. So I pigged out anyway. So I won't be doing that for a while. But we usually, we occasionally on the Saturday, if we get together, we'll have, you know, the occasional gin or whatever. But we haven't been doing it much now. We were doing it every Saturday. Now it's once a month, maybe. You know, it's a sort of a rare thing, which is good because he's actually working at the markets now. He's got he's, you know, selling the coffees and stuff like that. So it's a bit harder to. It's understandable. Yep. With all the other things that he's got to do, yes. I saw a recent video clip on Harry's Serpanos clips, a list with foods like taurine, cooked lamb, 45% less taurine than raw lamb. Interesting. Yeah, look, it can vary. It also depends on I think on that one, I'm not sure whether I mentioned it on it. That was overcooked. So it was, you know, like well done. Probably not overcooked, well done, what they say. So yeah, it was a reduction. But if you do the lamb like you know, cook it for too long and all that, you'll probably only lose about 15% or something like that. It won't be a horrendous amount. But it depends on the cuts of meat as well. See, a lot of some of the parts of the meat, you know, you've got all the gelatinous and type. And I think when that actually increases the temperature, that opens up a bit and releases a bit more fluids. So that can also be a factor. I can tell you, I actually use baking paper. I put it in baking paper in my tray. And so I will basically hold on to that fat, you know, so that's actually, and the water that's actually come off it. And I'll actually, you know, consume it. That won't go to waste, I can tell you. So it depends on how, you know. And what I do sometimes is I'll actually put that, once I've finished with those, I'll actually, today I was sort of, you know, mad rush, but normally what I'll do is I'll use that and combine it. So once before I've turned the eggs over, I'll actually literally drain that into there and combine it. And so it takes in those fats, the fluids and stuff like that. And then I'll put the eggs in and I'll drain everything on top of those eggs. And so that's what you probably saw on top of the eggs, like a little shadow or something like that. Well, that's the fluids that I drained on top. So, nothing goes to waste. Use it. So there's plenty of ways, as long as it's in the fluids and you haven't thrown away the fluids. So my walking partner on the weekends. I came back from the hospital from Dad. I've got an excuse. I had no option. I did do it privately, then finishing it off. God. Be giving it a hard time. Where's Sean? Is he gone to sleep, I suspect, early? Hit the... Why isn't he watching? Why isn't my brother watching my live streams and you're just watching it and you're just here badgering me, giving me a hard time? Also not sure if anyone's seen, but I found a diet water structuring device video, YouTube, using magnets. I can link it in the bar Discord. I'm gonna have to go at building if okay. Okay, so you found some sort of device, do it yourself. Don't know. There's a couple of things out there, but that people have come up with. One guy came up with a device to actually reduce deuterium in water. But then when I did the maths and looked at how much energy you'd require to reduce the deuterium in the tap water, it actually costs, I think it was about 30% more. So it just wasn't viable. You might as well just buy it from the company that does it at a mass level. Yeah. I would love if somebody came up with a portable device you could put tap water in and reduce the deuterium level. That'd be fantastic for everyone. I mean, you make coffee, you'd have low deuterium water at 102 parts per million. You don't want to go below because you still need some level. Too low, it can be problematic as well. Deuterium is used in some tissue as a growth factor and is useful for anabolism. So we don't want to go too low, but at the same time, we don't want to take in too high. The sweet spot is really at between the 110 and 125, right about there is the sweet spot for anybody that's healthy. Anybody that's got massive mitochondrial damage and many other things, they may need to go much lower to flush out the H2 that's in the cytosol. We need to remove all that deuterium that's inside the cell, that's basically being dragged in by this sort of reduced oxidative phosphorylation effect that can happen. So that's because we're trying to repair with taurine, with melatonin, with those sort of things, fix the mitochondria, try and get better oxidative phosphorylation, increase energy production, and then clear out this sort of stuff and improve the efficiency of the workings of the energy production system. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to shift away from growth into basically utilizing energy for repair and functioning. That's the purpose. And so the better mitochondrial function we've got, the better. It's young people nowadays that are getting onto these diets which are low deuterium diets. Those people are going to be they're going to be like many of our ancestors, in a very healthy state, like that long healthy lifespan. And then after cell division can't happen anymore, no more, then you die, but at least you don't suffer this decline because of energy, lots of energy. So you can't repair fast enough, and you've got accumulated damage, and you start having all sorts of heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, strokes, all sorts of things, because you can't clear things out. Things are building up, damage is building up all over the place. So yeah, you need energy. We need warp drive, Mrs. Scotty, to get things working properly. Yes. He's gone carnivore, has he? Fantastic. So he's seen you going to, improve, and he's sort of gone, there's something to this. Yeah, great. Make sure that he's going slowly into it, so he can adjust. Don't go, keep some plants in and just slowly drop them, like, the sort of things like pumpkin and, things of that sort. Some cucumbers, like pickled cucumbers that have been fermented. They're good for the gut as well. Things like that. So allow him to transition, and he'll probably like that sort of stuff anyway. He may even keep it. That's one thing that I have with Dad. He always has pickled cucumbers, so I usually have a few with him. Whenever I have a meal every fortnight, which is usually, otherwise I just turn up for a coffee. Kate left later, further down here. Should go to bed. Anyway, just tells me how far behind I am. I'm just going to go through these quickly. Oh, yes, please hit the like button. Yes, thanks, Kate, for telling them. Do you think that Paul, Selid, and Frankie changed diets for financial gain or health reasons? No idea, Zach. Absolutely no idea why reasons people have got a lot of reasons. Frankie's gone back to a lot of inappropriate foods, from what I hear people saying. He's eating all sorts of stuff, not just, he hasn't gone back. He's gone back to a standard diet, more or less. It's a standard diet that he's doing. So, yeah, the reasons motivating him behind, I have no idea. I don't really care, honestly. Paul is the one that really surprised me. Frank didn't surprise me. Frank was all over the place anyway. He was a bit of a showboat and always seemed to basically be more interested in controversy, a bit like Vegetable Police. Frank's a bit more like Vegetable Police in the controversy stuff. So he likes the clickbait, the notoriety. So, and it's not as if he was, he played around, he chased vegan women, he was never really committed to anything. It was just, the clickbait that he could actually get from the controversies. So whether that helps him on the financial front, some of the stuff that he was talking about, and the related health problems, there's no science to it, Zach. I mean, I did a video ages ago. But Reed changed these, and those videos are not available anymore. I'll have to ask him for them. I'll put them on my channel if he's not going to put them back on. But I did one on the 5G, on stuff like that, and just showed that quite clearly there is no oxidative stress. There is no increase in any of these sort of stress pathways that affects. So the only problem with all electromagnetic non-native fields is the blue spectrum. It's sort of the non-native spectrums that we're exposed to that have an effect on our circadian rhythms and stuff like that. That's where the problem is. That's even your wiring in your home. So, So yeah. But with Paul, he really blind, because a lot of the stuff that he initially said was not too bad, you know, and the way he's turned around in this direction is just out of left field. Not even neither me or Bart really understand why. I think I did say to Bart that I think the reason why Paul went the dark side, he started associating with certain vegans and certain people in the Ray Peak community and started talking with them. And he never was very strong on, he was very good at reductionist thinking, you know, because he went through the medical system and very much got trained in the allopathic reductionist approach. So he was very vulnerable to reductionist thinking, and very good convincing arguments put by some of these people were able to sway him. That's what I believe happened with Paul, and that's why he sort of lost his way and ended up where he is. So yeah, it's just is what it is. If he continues down that pathway, it's just going to get worse. He'll end up being like Ray Peat, who can't string a couple of sentences together and is basically showing signs of dementia, you know. So, you know, if he wants to end up that way, fine, you know, it's his choice, is his life. But, you know, it's really hard sometimes to untangle whether there are misunderstandings of the way the body works and financial reasons. It's hard to say. It varies between people. There are egos, controversies, a whole lot of things. So, yeah, it's really hard to know exactly why. I don't really care, to be honest. You know, these characters didn't have much to offer anyway. In many cases, they confused a lot of people with a lot of their reductionist thinking, and not explaining, even when they talked about some study, they never really explained what it actually meant, what it was actually saying. They just used all these terms to sound intelligent, but in reality, all they did was just talk over their subscribers' heads, you know, because basically many of my subscribers are very intelligent people, you know. They are accountants, lawyers, engineers like Dom, you know. They're not dumb people, you know, to talk over their head. But, you know, they didn't get trained in biochemistry. And even somebody like my father, you know, he'll read books and stuff like that. He's a boilermaker, ex-boilermaker welder. But, you know, if I talk to him in, you know, start having a conversation like that I was having with a nurse on basically discussing some biochemistry and the physiology, Dad had no idea what we were talking about. And why would he? You know, because we were using the scientific terminologies. But I try to avoid them as much as possible on my channel, because I want you guys to understand how these things work, the nuts and bolts, so you get it. And then you can basically make decisions on the way you will utilize that information for your own health. That's my focus. So, you know, I think they lost their way, basically. Anyway, he'll be back tomorrow. Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, that question that I asked you earlier. Yeah, that's right. Anyway. Judy Cho has a video about the facts that it's not necessary to eat organs on a carnivore diet. And the examples were Paul, Sel, and Frank. Basically too much copper, vitamin A, and other stuff. Yeah. Look, personally, mate, I don't think that vitamin A that they were consuming like levels that would have actually caused a lot of these problems that they were supposedly happening and all that. Copper, on the other hand, can be an issue. But at the end of the day, you know, most carnivores, unless they're eating absolutely a horrendous amount, and remember, copper, zinc, iron, all these, potassium, magnesium, whatever, what are they regulated? They are regulated by taurine. So if you're not eating enough meat, you won't regulate them. And unless you've got a problematic gallbladder, you won't excrete them. Copper can be, like manganese, can be excreted out of the body. But if your kidneys, your liver, gallbladder are not functioning very well, then some of these ions can't be excreted properly. That can create an issue. So, if you've got underlying unresolved things, that could be an issue. And if you basically don't have certain genetics that can clear some of these things a bit faster, that can also become an issue. But it's not, I haven't seen the video, so I can't really comment on what exactly that was said. But I don't think it's purely copper vitamin A issue. That's what they claim, but they never provided proof for that. It's just what they claim. Our capacity to store vitamin A is quite big. Retinol. As long as your liver's healthy. If it's not healthy, then it can be a problem. Then you can actually bleed. You can't store properly. So copper's the other one, but copper also can be excreted. So Vagoons also tend to get excess copper and excess manganese, but they have a problem. They are eating a very low choline and very low taurine diet, which means that they don't have a functioning gallbladder. They end up with a problematic gallbladder, too much gall sludge and stones, and can't actually excrete these excess minerals. So, when we're talking about ions of any sort, they can be, and when I'm talking about ions, I'm talking about all the different minerals, all these that the body, metals and minerals, we call them ions in the body. So ION, and pretty much their homeostatic regulation is taurine plays a big role. But taurine can only do so much. If the excretion organs that play the role in getting the stuff out are not working properly, then you can have a problem, but obviously still at the receptor sites taking in, there are taut transporters, so which have an effect on getting the taurine and then regulating at the enteric system, which is your gut system. It could be a problem, but it may not be. It may not be the real reason. I never really followed exactly what either one of them really did, how they ate or what they did or stuff like that. So it makes it very hard for me to comment specifically. But our body has a lot of robustness. So they must have been doing a horrendous amount and doing a lot of other inappropriate things that probably, if you basically do things like high fructose at the same time, you can derange a lot of liver function. And under those circumstances, high levels of organ meats could be a problem because you're not, processing things properly. So there's a lot of things. I don't know what he was doing. He may have been doing much earlier, honey and stuff like that before he came out. And so that may have been the problem. So it's really hard to know. It's like, food frequency questionnaires. Fill in this questionnaire, my dear. What did you eat in the last year or so? Most people can't even remember what they ate yesterday, let alone for the whole year. And most people lie or end up with really poor numbers. Simple as that. So you end up with just crap as a consequence. So, yeah, it is a problem. Anyway, let's move on. Let's try and make some. Okay. I'm not thirsty during the day, so I don't drink in order to get own metabolic water. Yep, me too. But like that, I then get thirsty in the evening before going to bed. How can I move thirst to an earlier time? Okay, so you get thirsty later on. Oh, I tend to have in the evenings, like milk, or I tend to have a bit of I'll have a late afternoon coffee with cream. And so I'm getting that extra fat. I don't know whether that's having an effect, but I don't seem to have that problem. But even when I'm not drinking coffee, so yeah, you should be able to, if you're fat adapted, you should be able to access metabolic water anytime. So not just because you've taken in food substrates and those food substrates have gone in and basically being utilized. Are you eating late at night? That can also block the ability to access. So I usually try and eat in the afternoons, like 3 o'clock, around there. But if you eat late at night, what will happen is you'll basically increase the growth pathways, like you'll increase your insulin and stuff like that, and to slightly impede the effect that could carry on for a few hours, the effect of accessing, hormone sensitive lipase to access more metabolic water, because you've got stuff coming in. So you may be eating later, and as a consequence, then you're basically not getting back into, you haven't digested and then switched back to accessing from the body. And so you may be sensing that sort of stuff and thinking, and it's sort of the inefficiency of trying to, because your digestion, as the sun goes down, cortisol drops and your melatonin starts rising, your digestion starts switching off, becoming less efficient in the evening. And so that can also affect water production if it's coming from the food, because the food's spiked insulin and inhibiting water access. That can be an effect. So if you're eating later, that could be a problem. As I say, eat in daylight if you want to be energized at night without requiring, or not being thirsty as well. Not a problem. Richard's gone now, so he'll hear about it later, but he watches the rest. He watches it when he gets to work. So thanks for being here, Richard. Take care, mate. Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Yeah. Is K1 from plants really not necessary? No, don't need it. We need a small amount for clotting factors, for clotting purposes, and we get it from the meat, we get it from dairy, and we get it, so I did a video a while back talking about the menaquinones, and I covered that as well. So I forget what it's called. Mick, good to have you here, mate. Anuk, good to see you, mate. The only good reason to use coronary intervention, PCI, is that there are actual blockages on a blood vessel. It is so often used because it is good money maker, so to say. Yes, it is. But it does have risks. That's the why we're going for the other option, but I'm trying to find a method of sort of accelerating that sort of stuff. Yeah, I've talked about that, Diego, about MK4 can also cover clotting factors. Yes, it does. Not as well as K1, but yes, it can as well. So it actually directly regulates some of these mechanisms, because it's the only menaquinone that actually can affect the DNA directly. So it's much more important in that regard. So that's true. Anyway, yeah. We're looking at options. Thanks for Mick. Anyway, 10 days in Greece in October. Any suggestions apart from normal tourist stuff? Any good old-fashioned meat-based restaurants? Yeah, you have to go out of the centre. You're not going to find them in the centre. If you want things like, kukuretsi, which is all the organs wrapped up in the intestine, cooked over coal, with a bit of araki or something like that, or a bit of wine, you got to go out of the centre. They're not going to make organ meats like that. That's one thing. Yeah. And so, or friganella, the livers, the little cooked, crispy chips, those sort of things. They're quite nice as well. I miss all those things. I grew up with organ meats in Greece, especially on the West Coast. So, when people say what they say about them nowadays, I just go, yeah, whatever. People are eating them on a very regular basis and they didn't seem to have any problems. So, why do modern people now have them? It sort of surprised me. I'd say there's probably due to derangements within their ability for their livers to work properly and store properly and many other things like that. So they haven't resolved or fixed properly because they have not investigated those areas. So, but anyway, stick out of the touristy areas. You'll find some good restaurants in that regard. So even in Blaka, which is a sort of a touristy area, slightly just outside Blaka, you will find some fairly good places. I always brag about the smaller towns. Definitely you'll find. And don't forget the lamb's yogurt, the Greek lamb's yogurt, especially if you go into the Peloponnese or up north of Athens. In some areas there you will find, like in central Greece, you will find in the sort of rural areas, you'll find, the Greek lamb's yogurt. Get yourself some of that. Oh, God, I miss that. It's one of the things that I miss the most. Oh, anyway. Got to find a way of actually making my own at some point. So really miss it. Anyway. And hi to all from France. Good to have you here, mate. I actually like your little image there. I really like that. First time here. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thanks for joining the live stream and becoming a subscriber as well. Yes. There's a lot of love in this. We're pretty friendly, all of us. We're very friendly. Anyway, I realised I have more tartar on my lower front teeth since going carnivore. All through, I'm taking 100 mcg minoquinone each day and eating brie. Now, Sally said that this can be oxalate too. Your take? I don't know. That's basically it. I don't know. Some people see complete, they take a bit of, they eat foods like eggs and stuff like that have got, they're getting a bit more minoquinone for, completely the opposite effect. And others see an increase. It could be, but I haven't investigated the oxalate side. It's been said, Sally's said it. There's a couple of other people that have confirmed it, but I haven't seen any research. Now, could be anecdotal in that regard. But somebody would have to, okay, let's say there's no research. If you've got an increase in tartar, what I would do, I would go to a dentist and say, can you clean out, like put, where they put the plastic thing in the back to hold on to the fluids? Can you actually take all this stuff out around my teeth, clean it, do it, a mouth clean and all that, and hold on to all that sort of stuff. So into a cup, and then have it tested to see, does it have an oxalate content in it? That will tell you if oxalates are involved. Without testing, it's an opinion of what may be happening. Most carnivores get the reverse effect. So they see better oral health improving in that regard, and teeth and stuff like that getting stronger. Like mine, I mean, I crunch through bones, so my teeth are much stronger. I make it to crunch through bones. So for your teeth to be tarted and still be a bit weaker and stuff like that, could it be oxalates? I mean, I did a video, remember, where I showed in the bone there were oxalates crystals making the bone weak. So it can get into the bone. And, you know, if it can get into one bone, it should be technically able to get into teeth as well. You know, logically, it should be able to get into all these sort of tissues. But have I actually seen research? No. You know, it's people have anecdotally said or stated or reported. But yeah, I do not know, and I don't have any direct sort of like my own personal experience or anyone close to me or somebody that has actually tested these things. So it's hard to know, but it could be a possibility. Yeah. Most of my, you know, I base it on research, base it on things that I can actually answer to. So anybody actually challenges me on anything, you know, I put all my research, put all my links, all my documents. I'll argue every single point. And that's why people don't argue with me, because they know I've got everything covered. If I say I don't know, I don't know. It's simple as that. I just haven't seen any good research, you know. It's all white than tartar. White than tartar. Yeah, look, I think you'd have to get your mouth cleaned. You'd have to go and get a test to see whether there's anything in that stuff that you clean out of your teeth. Is there any oxalate crystals? Even there can be like very fine stuff. It's not only, you know, you can get large ones, but you can also get very fine ones. And they also can actually cause bone derangements, or, you know, in terms of osteoblast, osteocasts. So when you're building osteoblasts, you know, you can actually incorporate some of these little crystals in, and that can actually change the modeling and weaken the structure of the bone as well. So, and that can then if it's in the tooth, you know, possibly the enamel, possibly the surface, and that make it more vulnerable to further damage and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not stuff that I've looked into, you know, like even though when it comes to one of the rotary sort of things that it actually can help with improving the oral microbiome, when it comes to oxalate crystals, I know there's some research with the bone stuff and all that, but, you know, then you got the problem with, you know, tooth enamel and citric acid. You just can't put it in your mouth and swirl it around, because that has a negative effect on the enamel. Yeah, if it is getting into the oral environment in a large amount, maybe there are some people that are more susceptible. Maybe you're one of them. Question is, how do you deal with it? Which is low diluted lemon juice will have less of a damaging effect on the enamel. Could that help? I don't know. Could using something like, you know, sulfur amino acids like taurine and sort of swirling it in your mouth. Will that have any effect? No idea. You can try these things, but these are hard ones because there's no research. We haven't really looked into it. There's a lot of anecdotes, and so keep that in mind. But do a bit of experimentation, Stefan. See whether anything can have effect in shifting it slightly. I've done experimentations in the past and sometimes just found things that I was sort of, what about digesting raw egg whites? Heard about the type of protein. It cannot be digested. It depends. It's not that amount. It's quite much smaller. And the biotin issue as well is overblown. You only have a reduction of 27% of biotin in raw eggs loss. So it's not that big. You actually have more than the inhibiting effect. So it's not a big issue. But I don't, I'll have a few raw yolks now and then, or in beef tartare and stuff like that. But I prefer frying my eggs. I love them fried, as you saw tonight, what I did. So, but, people have been eating raw eggs for millennia. Tribal people ate them, You only get about 27% inhibition of the biotin. So it's not, you still get the majority of it. Yes, cooked, you'll get more. At the end of the day, protein is going to be broken down and denatured in the stomach as long as you've got a good pH. Simple as that. So some of these inhibitory factors are very weak in the eggs compared to the plant. Protease inhibitors, which are far more potent. So I wouldn't worry too much. 32 here, but only 11 likes. Please help Harry out with the likes. Yeah, guys, Kate's right. A bit of love, even dislikes. I'll take a dislike if you're peeved off with me for whatever reason. I can't think of why, but Richard, I noticed that sometime just last night. Okay. Strange. Yes. That's what I say as well. A question on sauerkraut or pickles. Good for enhancing stomach acidity. Only slightly. May have an effect. Nothing major. Really, the regulator of stomach acidity is really taurine. It regulates the proton pumps. The end of the day, and also suppresses H. pylori. So if H. pylori is around, it sorts it out. So it improves stomach acidity and lowers your pH. So, but there are probiotic benefits from those things, but fermented meats, cheeses, and many other things, dairy, can also have probiotic benefits. So you don't necessarily need, I used to do sauerkraut, but I don't do anymore. I usually have some pickled cucumbers. That's with Dad, and he buys some Polish ones. I think they're raw. So they've never, it's with a mother. So it's just basically in there fermented, and I don't mind having a few now and then. So, but if you want to improve your stomach acidity, really, you got to get the taurine in, and you got to get a properly functioning stomach. So, the chloride in the salt, that helps, and sodium chloride, that is the chloride part, and also having good functioning digestive system. So that's all working properly now, then not a problem. But these things can help a bit, but at the end of the day, they're band-aid solutions, a lot of these things. At the end of the day, we really need to, and they do have downsides because they tend to have some effect on, some anti-nutrients. So that's the downside. Is there something like lipotoxicity through too much fat, meaning elevated triglycerides too much? Nah, it's just these. idiotic things that people make up. So blood testing after meals also sensible, but not only fasted. Nah, waste of time. This sort of lipotoxicity is just nonsense. The body, look, the body will actually take any excess substrates, whether it's engaging the Randall cycle to put them away, or whether it basically will convert them to something different and put them away. If it can't do these functions, it's because you've got derangements or dysfunctioning organs that can't do it, or you can't generate enough energy because you've fucked your mitochondria to such a level where you can't convert things properly. And then, yes, you can have things where you can't manage certain things in your body. But that's a different thing from being in a healthy state. So, yeah, they come up with all these idiotic, nonsensical stuff. I remember a young bloke, he did 5,000 kilocalories of energy in terms of saturated fat every day. He was a British guy. I forget his name, young bloke. I haven't seen much of him. I did subscribe to him, but I haven't seen much of his content for ages. I don't know whether he's given up or whatever. But, if somebody consumes, he consumed massive amounts, and just to prove a point that being in this very high ketonic state, it didn't put any weight on. And then when he did the experiment with sugar, he did, but not a lot, very small. Again, being young with efficient mitochondria, you can oxidize things way more efficiently. So there's a lot of factors, but they like using these cute names, which basically mean nothing really. It's sort of like, oh, your triglycerides, if you exercise, your triglycerides will go up. You'll export more fat to get around energy to your muscles, so they work better. So things can, depending on what you're doing activities. Most people on low carbohydrate diets that are not physically active, they will have lower triglycerides in a fasted state. Why? Because basically you're using that energy so fast out of the system that your trigs will go low. But if you exercise, your trigs will go up and your blood sugar will go up, because your body will produce more through gluconeogenesis in order to basically say, we may need more. Not because, but we don't know. But that's not a derangement. That's just basically the body going, I'm going to produce a bit more just in case. So it will elevate slightly these things. So, yeah, I know a lot of people, do not understand physiology or like to come up with nonsensical terminologies just to basically, reductionist nonsensical terminologies, just to basically sound intelligent. All they do is they just show how pathetically stupid they are, in my personal opinion. 30-50 for grounding mats to use when sitting on a desk or watching TV seems like a good cost, risk, effort, benefit ratio, cheaper than a few drinks out on the town. Exactly. Not expensive. We're not talking about, horrendous cost here. On a cost benefit, Mick, yeah, exactly. I just don't understand why people make such a fuss. They'll go out and spend $100 one night, giving themselves, a headache the next day, and dehydrating themselves and feeling like crap. And then they'll balk at buying something like this that will give them a lot of future benefits for many years. Yeah, I sometimes just go, get your priorities right. I had foot surgery 2 years ago. The toes are still inflamed. Now when I ground my feet on grass, the burning sensation gets worse after some time. Maybe that's not a bad sign. Better circulation. Look, it may also mean that you're healing, and healing can sometimes increase localized inflammation. So you can actually then pull in arachidonic acid. You can pull in some of the others to actually produce some of the components that then tell the body, here we've got damage, we need to fix some of this sort of stuff. So encouraging healing. so to speak. So, yes, sometimes when we're healing, we also feel pain, which is just unfortunate the way it goes, just the way it is. I had a genetic report done, and it recommends a low sulfur diet and to avoid supplements like taurine due to CBS gene. I believe you think this is an issue. Not really, Richard. I don't believe that is a big issue. I think that it can be a problem if you're on a species inappropriate diet. Then you don't have this sort of choline is a big thing that can actually help improve things. I do intend to do a video on CBS. I was intending to do it, but I just haven't got around doing it. But do expect a video. I'll be covering this point, the genetics and all that. And so with that, I'm not going to go into it now, but expect a video. I will be covering this point. And that one's the, I could be wrong, but I believe that is the 667, I think it is. I think it's the 667 one, which is the primary one. I have a video on that, and it's called hold on. It's always at the bottom. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I changed it. Did I change the name? Ah, that's right. Yes. MTH4 keto carnivore. I did have methylation part 1. Anyway, this video Yep, that's it. That's the one. That's the one. Yep. 18.0.11.33 is the C677T. Yep, that's the primary one. I've got the TT alleles, so I'm homozygous. Basically, I've got both. So yes. And I did a video on that. That was the part 1 that I did. If you check that out, Richard. See that? That's TT. That's homocysteine going right down. Guess what actually does that? Riboflavin. There's shitloads of riboflavin in animal foods, especially in dairy and meat. We get shitloads of riboflavin. That issue doesn't exist in us. It only exists in vegans and vegetarians, especially the ones that don't eat enough, dairy, vegetarians, that is. But once you actually get enough riboflavin, see, there, you put in riboflavin, it eliminates the problem altogether. The homocysteine goes down. Got it? It's all you need. It corrects it completely. It's a non-issue. I don't believe in... Naturopaths will sell you on folic acid and all sorts of things, and all they'll do is they'll give you anemia because you'll burn through your B12 when you take too much folic acid. So not a good idea. You just need riboflavin to correct the underactive enzyme. So once you give it enough riboflavin, the enzyme works properly, and then it's like not having the homozygous. It actually resets it back to normal, like for everyone else. So it becomes a non-issue. And it means that naturopaths can't make any money off you either. Once they know you're eating plenty of meat and getting enough riboflavin, it eliminates that whole disease issue, because it's not a disease. It's a meat deficiency, I call it. Not eating enough meat or animal products to get enough riboflavin to correct the problem in the first place. So, yeah. These are the things. So you had a similar experience. Yes, pain, irritation, increase at first, good sign. Learn to avoid pain avoidance reactions. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Pain is basically telling the body, I'm healing you. You know, when we suppress pain, we actually suppress recovery. You know, when you take painkillers, I don't take any painkillers. I just put up with it. You know, and give my body good nutrition and stuff like that, earthing, that stuff, and it heals. It's the way the body says, don't move this thing because you've damaged it and now I need to heal it. And so stop putting strain, stress, or whatever else. And Anouk, thanks, mate. Very well put. Not only does he appear on my live stream, but he contributes as well with some useful N of one knowledge. Thank you. PM Johnson thinks many are sensitive to eggs because eggs protein is used in childhood vaccines. Don't know. I've never seen a study to look into it. Possibly. Don't know. That could be an issue. But I had childhood vaccines as well with eggs. I never got reactivity whatsoever. And many other people do. Could some people be susceptible due to certain genetics? Possibly. I don't know. None of us do know. There's anecdotes, but could there be other underlying issues? Don't know. We've got to be honest about these things because we just don't know. We don't have the research. It's like in the nutritional space. There's a lot of holes in the literature. So all we can do is go back to the N15 data because that's a foundation stone, archaeologically based, which can't be refuted, even though they try by muddling up the waters with all sorts of nonsensical excuses. You're welcome. Besides vitamin D, what benefits of sunlight are compromised on the cloudy day? Also, besides vitamin D status, what are the benefits of full body exposure? Cholesterol sulfate, which is a water-soluble form of cholesterol, which has a number of benefits in the body. So, yeah, that's one. Energy production, an increase in energy production through complex 4, cytochrome C, as one would call it. You will actually get an improvement in energy production this is at the electron chain. This is right at where energy production is. So you're basically cytochrome C activity will increase by 30% if you're right smack on the equator. The further away you are from the equator, it will reduce, sort of like that. Sort of, yeah. So you can get additional energy and all that. So the further away we are from the equator, the more we need like long chain fats to produce metabolic water and produce also, energy, high quality energy. So via the oxidative phosphorylation, where the closer we are to the equator, we can acquire energy from the sun, UV, through cytochrome C. So, yeah. So there are more than just those benefits. Vitamin, the regulation of the immune system, the entire system is coated with vitamin D receptors, so really important in that regard. So it goes on and on. But married to a species-appropriate diet, you get far more benefits. Still not making traction. I'm still behind quite a bit. Get rid of that. You'll have to wait for a video on that HD. So I'm investigating quality assurance and stuff like that currently. So still working on it. People on a species-appropriate diet, like a carnivore diet, will not see eczema. But that doesn't mean if you do a carnivore diet, immediately you'll get rid of eczema. Eczema can actually be aggravated through the oxalate dumping as well, even when you do that. And there can be a number of other environmental factors, stress. So there can be a number of other factors beyond the diet. But we don't see it in tribal people. We don't see eczema. Now, there are certain genes that get turned on. This is an area I'm investigating currently when it comes to skin lesions and skin issues. How to turn the genes off. Now, while a species-appropriate type will improve things, and obviously things like biotin that you find in eggs and niacin. Niacin in particular is really important for these skin conditions. So a niacin supplement will really be good. Don't get the ones that don't flush. The ones that flush are the ones that you need. The ones that don't flush, they can be damaging to your liver. The long sort of effect ones, no, don't use those. But if you use a regular niacin, it does cause flushing in some people. It can be slightly mitigated by consuming it with milk. So scull it down. It's already cold. Yeah, so niacin does play a big role in that, which is B3. You'll find in pork in particular and tuna, you'll find more niacin. So they're good foods to consume on a more regular basis to help with the eczema sort of issue. The other thing is you can supplement niacin as well, which will improve this condition. And I'm still investigating some areas of genetics to turn things off. So a bit like I did with those brain disorders with phosphatidylserine in high doses that can turn off the genes and correct those neurological disorders. These sort of skin problems as well can be on a species-appropriate diet and with niacin and all that can be down-regulated. But completely turned off, I'm still working on the dosages, trying to investigate the right dosages for that. So stay tuned. At some point, I will cover the point a bit more comprehensively, how to sort this out permanently. Are cured meats a good source of probiotics? Yeah, they can be. You know, some people prefer going. I love cured meats. Don't get me wrong, but some people don't, and some people sort of poo-poo them, and they go away and they actually do other things. You know, all populations have always done some level of fermentation. The Inuit take fish, they throw them under the snow and let them ferment. Humans have been fermenting animal foods for a very long time, and the reason why we've got such a low pH is because we can actually tolerate, rotten food. That's what really fermented food is. It's rotten food, So we have a certain tolerance, and it does give us some benefits, especially some of the lactobacillus ones, which we don't get enough. We get coated in them when we come through the birth canal, but we lose a lot due to glyphosate, due to antibiotics, due to many things that reduce the amount in our system. So, so these sort of cured meats, fermented meats, fermented dairies and all that can give us back some of these beneficial bacterial strains. So yes, they can have a benefit in that regard. When I get my cured meats, I actually let them, I actually I look at the ones that actually are the older ones rather than so I look at the date, and the ones that actually are closer to basically, not being suitable, what they call, I don't give a shit about that. They're the ones that I actually consume, not the fresh ones that are going to have less, And look, as long as obviously when it's cured aged meats, which is, I love them, they will have higher histamines. Now that's only a problem if you have some issues that haven't been resolved. Now, taurine can re-regulate that, and through inflammasome can actually suppress histamines and spermidine, and so as a consequence, it's not an issue. But if you've got underlying issues that still haven't been resolved, it may not be the best thing at this stage for some people. So you've got to be careful. But for me, I've resolved all those things. So I just love eating that sort of stuff. And I usually get mine raw cured meats. So not cooked, raw. So yummy. Are the red glasses you are wearing of any special kind, or just regular red? They're actually blue blocking glasses. They actually reduce blue light, and to some extent they reduce green light, the frequencies. So it actually makes sure that my receptors in my eyes, when they're not picking up these frequencies, and so they're not signaling and affecting my melatonin production. So that's important, So the melanopsin in your eyes is more concentrated, and it has the strongest signal to the pituitary gland. So it's really, when it comes to that, so it has the biggest effect. Now, we do have melanopsin on our skin receptors as well, but they're not as dense and much less, here's me with long sleeves, but still, still the face, things like that. So yeah, can't live in the modern world with, you try to mitigate as much as possible. You got blue blocking lights as well, Toilet has a red light, the one next to my bathroom, next to my room, my sleeping room. So that's got a red light as well. And so when I turn those on, the room looks red. And I go, red and inviting. And I get a giggle when I say that. But anyway. Or I get a remark from Hello Kitty, you dirty old man. Anyway, let's say you're probably hydrating. You drink high deuterium water. Will this heavy water still be incorporated into your body, or will it go through you and not cause damage? If you're really well hydrated and all that, hard to say. We've never done the experiment, so I don't know. But obviously, some of it will end up in the cytosol, inside the cell, because you've got fluid exchanges between the extracellular fluids and ionic exchange, because there's always ionic exchange between, there's an electron neutrality that needs to be maintained. So as you lose, a bit of sodium comes in, or a little bit of potassium goes out, or magnesium and all that. These ions, in order to maintain electron neutrality at the membrane, you have to basically turn on or off to basically to push these ions in or out to maintain the gradient. Obviously, when that's happening, you're going to be pulling in some water, of that content of water. That goes inside the that middle part within the actual cell, the inside of the cell. We call that, so that's the cytosol, that sort of middle part area. And from there, you can, if this is only if you've got slightly some of the mitochondria not functioning well. Sorry guys, I am tired because I didn't get good sleep last night, with dad's issues. So I'm, really not 100% firing on all four cylinders. But anyway, I'm trying my best. And so, yeah, the yawning, I may actually get a few more yawns later on. It's only 9 o'clock. Can't believe I'm yawning already. It's not my usual thing, but I've been stressed and exhausted. I just realised that just from that sort of thing, because it's 9 o'clock and I'm yawning. What the hell's wrong with me? Anyway, I didn't sleep well last night, and you can understand why. And so as you're doing this, you're getting some of this reversal effect. It will pull more in. And so if there is more in the cell, you will actually pull in more within that water volume within the matrix, and that will be pushed through, and you'll get more neutrons going through and doing more damage to the electron, to the ATP synthase. So yes, it can be a problem. But if you've got really healthy mitochondria, very young and all that, some of that may end up in the cytosol, but never get dragged in. And if it doesn't get dragged in, I'm making Gary yawn. Sorry, Gary. I can't believe it. I do feel tired. I am quite tired. I'm sort of struggling a bit. I thought I'd have the endurance, but I've been, didn't get enough sleep and didn't eat all day until this evening. And it probably wasn't the best time to eat late in the evening, because, your digestive system sort of, and being, I just forgot about food all day. And so then going down, having to come back in a hurry, trying to sort things out. So yeah, I'm just not with it in the same fashion as I normally am. But yeah, so I wouldn't do it. Honestly, I just would not put the stuff into my body, because the more you do that, you're asking for trouble. Simple as that. Long term, the more we put deuterium heavy water in it, we need to minimize as much as possible. Somebody says electrolyte problems, which are horrible. So I understand him, but still, he couldn't eat more protein and raise insulin to retain the electrolytes, but also but was influenced by Sinclair and was, yeah, exactly. Sinclair basically is low protein, because all about this mTOR risk, and it's just nonsense. Lilith, she's basically an example of a person doing a carnivore diet and basically underlying health issues and reversing it. And we're talking about the C word. So yeah, it's I mean, she's mentioned it before anyway. So it's nonsense. mTOR signaling for muscle protein synthesis is going to be lower. mTOR, IGF-1, insulin. Well, insulin and mTOR actually go together. Yeah, I know. He talks about, yeah, I know. He's afraid of mTOR, IGF-1 and all that. IGF-1, look, just work this in your head. In primitive organisms, millions and millions of years ago, when the growth signaling pathways were developed in early organisms, there was no IGF-1 and there was no insulin. It was basically one thing. It was called insulin IGF-1. One thing. There was no separation of these two. There was one single growth pathway. They worked together synergistically. So even though there's a division of labor, they've been separated. When insulin goes up, IGF-1 goes up. When insulin goes down, IGF-1 goes down. And these things are interacting with mTOR. So how much these go up, these anabolic pathways, they go very much in unison. It's only when you engage the Randall cycle, when you actually do that, and you actually magnify the insulin signaling, it drags up IGF-1 and drags up mTOR and suppresses glucagon. Got it? So if you're at a 1.3 of insulin to glucagon, you're not going to get overexpression of mTOR, IGF-1, or insulin. But if you're basically, your glucagon is in the toilet and your insulin is right up here, it's going to drag up all the other growth pathways. And usually when you get the reverse Krebs cycle, that also pushes up these growth pathways. Got it? So deuterium, carbs, seed oils, blah, 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 Randall cycle, all these things are pushing up these pathways beyond the physiological requirements for protein synthesis. You only need a bit of signaling of insulin to get protein synthesis. I showed it in that video, the leucine one that I did. People in a fasted state could actually still manage protein synthesis by putting in enough leucine. And that signaled to insulin and IGF-1, and they just rose a bit. But that person was in a fasted state, but they could still build muscle. You don't need a lot. It's when you actually put all these other substrates in that basically you can magnify the effects. And these growth pathways are not growth pathways just for adiposity. That's what the Randall cycle is. Excess energy. I need to put it somewhere, and I'm going to make you highly, in a state where you will have elevated growth pathways, and you'll turn this reverse Krebs cycle type thing, and you'll pull in the deuterium, doing more damage while you're growing. You're using this system to grow more tissue, which is adipose tissue and stuff like that. Got it? So that's what really is happening. That's the problem. These reductionist morons that don't understand the intricacies of how these things work. This is why they don't understand cancer. They don't get it. Cancer is basically too much H2, deuterium, being pulled into the actual, by this reverse effect that's actually happening because you've already damaged the mitochondria from high deuterium, which is seed oils, refined sugars, and all that. It's the stuff that Salad Boy's doing. So he's damaging himself and creating these vulnerabilities. It's laughable if it wasn't serious. Anyway, exactly. Yeah, well, that's what it is. Normal humans for millennia before agriculture basically ate animal foods in their whole form, with all the different fatty acids and amino acids and connective tissue and everything else. So that's how we're supposed to eat. all this sort of nonsensical reductionism, can allow us to understand certain enzymatic pathways, how things are catalyzed, how things are broken down and put together inside by these enzymes, and what the micronutrients that are cofactors in the enzymes receptor sites to make them work in certain ways. That's fine understanding that. But at the end of the day, you have to understand the synergistic relationship, move beyond the reductionism, and then you understand, okay, if I do this, this affects this, but also it affects that, and also that affects that. That's what I've been doing, stringing all this together and giving you some very simple way of understanding that this is happening. You're pulling in this sort of stuff. You're damaging these systems. You're creating impure water, higher in deuterium. It's stuffing up those nanomotors. It basically is reducing the energy production capacity. And then you move into this growth pathway, sending signals back to say, we can't survive. Turn on the oncogenes, turn on within, this less efficient glycolytic pathways to provide energy. And then it basically starts producing more lactate to pull it out. What do you think I like using taurine in people with cancer to basically force the out of lactate production into basically the Krebs cycle, suppress that ability to use, force it through oxidative phosphorylation, try and restore that pathway, is all these things, mechanisms. These are the things that these reductionists don't understand. So that's why they continue doing all the mistakes that they do. So, yes. Mr. Randall, how are you? It's good to have you here, Philip. Yes, yes. And howdy doody to you. I hope it's nice and warm down there. It's warmer than it's here. God. This morning was felt a bit on the fresh side, let's put it that way. And even tonight, I sort of going, yes. Oh, yes. Nothing like being in the tropics, getting out there, enjoying those rays, getting that extra 30% energy for free. Yes. And not even being charged for it. Yes. Yes. From that Biden bloke. Yes. He likes to charge, especially energy, organically based, good energy. Yeah, it is, isn't it? The best. And sunnies love it. Yep. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. Yeah. Nice one, Diego. Oh, is it that machine? Who was talking about it? Yeah, that thing. Okay, interesting. Deactivate you. Don't confuse him, DJ. Oh, is she related to you? Yep, that's true. Yeah, I think Lukey had a bit of that issue as well, but it cleared up once he sorted out his thyroid. Yeah. Yeah, look, the body is an interconnected thing. Kidneys can affect the thyroid. Thyroid can affect, a whole lot of things, so stress hormones. It's all interrelated. And the nice thing is the regulator, all the ions that are flowing through the thyroid, like the key ones, selenium and iodine in the thyroid and some of the others through the kidneys and all that, all nicely regulated by taurine found in our beautiful, wonderful meats. So, yeah, it just, that's why these ancestral people don't have these problems. It's just magic stuff. Elizabeth, good to see you here. Oh, that's early, isn't it? Yes. You're dedicated. That's good to have you here. God, 5 o'clock, I'd still be in bed. I mean, Lukey made an appearance early. He dropped in. I don't know whether he went to bed or not because he was. He said because he was on the other live stream and it was quite late by the time he got to bed. So yeah, can't we get low deuterium water from fat with a chemical process? Possibly, yeah. Yeah, possibly. But don't know how will you do it. I think at the end of the day, it'd have to be cost effective. So it'd have to be, you'd have to be able to make it cost effective somehow. Yeah. Don't worry, I am trying to find other, like the Evian water, for things like coffee and stuff like that is an option which I use, but it's not. How can I put it? It's not a solution in that regard. So I'm still trying to find some better solution in that regard. At the moment, all we've got is high alpine water. So the higher the elevation. Now, obviously, water being in the Himalayas would actually be even better in those really high latitudes. Any water coming in from springs in those mountains, that should be, because it's so high up, even higher than the French Alps, it's probably even lower. But I haven't been able to find any brands from that region because obviously it's within China. But even in Nepal or any places like that, I mean, if anybody knows of any bottled water from those regions, that would be interesting because I suspect that would be in the lower range, in the sort of lower 140s. Possibly some of it could be even in the 130s. Like I know some in some parts which I can't get access, like this one in Siberia, which is in the, I think, 132 or something along those lines, really quite low. It's close to the 130, which is this sort of the olive oil cutoff line, where 130 and below, you basically don't have to worry, in a sense, how much you consume. It's anything above the 130. So being at 132, 33, it's more or less nearly a non-problem. But obviously, that's in a certain part of Siberia, you can't really, it's a sort of village type rural area. So there's no bottling facilities or anything like that. So, but there's got to be somewhere else around the world. And, that's, if anybody ever finds his or whatever, please let me know. I'll, because I keep on looking. I'm using these alpine waters at the moment, but if we can find something better, that's it. And so it's not going to be as low as the deuterium depleted water, which they produce in those factories, but at least it's going to be better than some of the stuff that we've already get. So, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Definitely. And it definitely is called that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Rather than low deuterium water, it is metabolic water. From fat oxidation. Yes, definitely. Yes, but outside the body. Yes, and it's low deuterium water. Yes, I think Gary, what he's trying to do is produce water outside the body, and that's where the chemical process comes in. So he's correct in that regard as well. You're both correct. You're for the internal side. He's for the external side. Camels, anyone? With an industrial process, yes. That is an expensive option. But could you do it cheaper than from that way than the other way? Don't know. Be interesting. Look, a lot of us, if we're not inflamed, we're healthy and all that, probably okay. But if you've got mitochondrial damage, you've got a lot of things, probably. I'm sort of trying to justify it to myself at the moment, so I'm thinking of experimenting a bit and buying some metabolic water, this low deuterium water from Hungary, get it shipped out here. I'm going to see whether any of my relatives or friends are interested, and I may be able to bring some to Tasmania, and we may then share the cost, so-called so I think they have two-tier system. They have one, they'll send it through the sort of regular post, which means it goes through on a boat, can take probably over a month and a half to get here. And then there's the other one, the flight. But I haven't ordered, so I don't really know what their costs, so I may have to look into that. So, yeah. Elizabeth, look, a lot of these nutritionists are basically, they're taught in a certain way. It's all sort of, this is our field, that's their field. It's irrelevant sort of attitude. No, it's not irrelevant. You know, archaeology can, through the carbon and nitrogen isotopes, can tell us the type of foods we consumed in the past. So it is relevant, but obviously the nutritional field especially is very pseudoscientific and very much caught up with the food industry and invested interest. And the biochemical field, they tend to be very reductionist. You know, they're focused on, look, you know, we don't really care about that. We're just interested in what these enzymatic pathways do and how they work, and whether you can actually play around with them and all that with certain pharmaceuticals to get certain results. Again, for the pharmaceutical industry, one for the food industry, the other for the pharmaceutical industry. And so they don't really care about natural or archaeological evidence or whatever. One's interested in pharmacology, you know, that basically they can develop for big pharma. And so they're looking at how it's interacting with our biochemistry without creating too many side effects and problems of that. And the other side is basically how they can create foods that are basically compliant with their own CICO sort of logic. So, yeah, it's just nonsense. Very much driven by ideological agendas that have less to do with long-term human health and all that. Because if they did have with human health, we wouldn't be getting sicker, we'd be getting better, and they would be going out of business. And that's the reality. Yes, look, obviously Tata, is one of those things. I mean, sorry, God almighty. God. Freaking hell. I am struggling tonight, aren't I? I'm definitely struggling tonight compared to other nights. Where did I put that? I left it in the video one, didn't I? This is in my video folder. I don't know why I left it in my video folder, but anyway, it is where it is in that regard. This is an old study. What year? 1994. There's a German study. Oxalic acid in saliva, teeth, tooth tartar. So obviously you can get it. You can get oxalic acid, which is oxalate, in saliva, in teeth, and in tooth tartar. Okay, that doesn't mean that it is the tooth tartar. It can be incorporated in tooth tartar. It can be incorporated in teeth, and it can be incorporated in saliva. In that regard. Anyway, that's for a video for another day. But all I can say is if people have this sort of issue and they suspect that oxalates are aggravating the issue, then give it a try with methaquinone and citric acid, and see whether it proves things. So I'll get rid of that. It's one of those things. I haven't, because I've never had the issue. I haven't really looked into it in any deep way about, whether obviously it does incorporate and can aggravate that issue. Obviously, it's not the only driver of that issue of tartar, but in some people on a carnivore diet, it may be in that regard. But again, as I said, unless you collect the stuff out of your mouth and then sort of spit it into a container, then take it and test it to find out whether it's got oxalate crystals. I just don't know. But if the tartar and the saliva do have, then you can say, well, okay, that's probably the issue that's driving it in certain people. So what we were talking about earlier. So yeah, it's still one of those things. Maybe it makes it worse because of that. I know Sally's talked about it, but I haven't seen any scientific evidence. It's more like she's dealt with clients and they've actually had, so there's a lot of N of ones, but there's no research here. So there's a lot of N of ones, and it may be the case. Somebody that deals with a lot of clients is going to see a lot of variations of oxalate effects, far more than I or any of you guys are going to see. So I would say if she's seen this aggravated tartar due to oxalates compared to other people, when she eliminates the issue, then that goes away as well or reduces substantially. Then there probably is some mechanism that's driving that. So it's quite clear in the research back in 94, that research, German research, that quite clearly that, that in the saliva, and it can actually, if you've got oxalic acid, it can actually aggravate the sort of tartar affecting and stuff like that and incorporate into it and into the teeth as well. But again, as I said, it's like I'm not saying it's not the chicken and the egg. That just sounds idiotic. But it's the precise mechanisms have not been cleared out, exactly. Is it is basically this contributing to the aggravation of a pre-existing condition, or is it driving this condition? This is what I don't know. I don't know whether the oxalates are driving and making the tartar worse, or it's just a pre-existing thing that's coming from a deranged oral microbiome, because a bad oral microbiome that hasn't been fixed, because just somebody who does a carnivore diet, they still may have gut issues, a bad digestive microbiome, gallbladder issues, all sorts of things. Well, you can still have poor oral microbiome as well that hasn't been fixed because of all the antibiotics and all the other stuff we've been doing, the glyphosate and all that. So it may not be, it's just there's a coincidental relationship between, and that's the best way to describe it, between oxalates and tartar. but really the driver isn't nothing to do, it just aggravates it, but nothing to do with the actual oxalates. It's more related to, a poor oral microbiome that hasn't been fixed, haven't been resolved. So, and there is that Ruteri that helps, and a couple of other things. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. I still have a bit of question marks on it because no science, anecdotes. So, yes, we need to be critical thinking when we're looking at this sort of stuff, because it can be either, it may not be causal, but it may be actually a contributing factor, or could be a confounding factor. It could be basically a factor that sort of amplifies it. That means aggravates it. So we jumping the gun. Obviously, somebody that sort of has made a career around oxalates or this or that, sometimes it's like your baby, and so everything looks like, through that prism of oxalates, everything looks like oxalate. It's like NTHFR, everything looks like a deficiency in folate, which it's not. It's an underactive enzymatic pathway that can be corrected by eating more animal foods that give you riboflavin and just correct it and upregulate the enzyme. Bob's your uncle, and the problem is fixed. So it's sort of a misunderstanding due to reductionist thinking of that process. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Let's put it that way. So need more science, need more thinking, need more analysis to see what is really happening, and needs a few experiments to try things out and see, is this working? Does this resolve it? Does this do this? Does this reduce it? Does it increase it? So you need to do these sort of little things. I mean, even we as citizens can do some of these experiments, try things out and see what happens. Like my antifibrotic effects with taurine, and I was able to resolve a whole lot of other things, and that's how I found out all these other things, that it could do magical things to other parts of the body. So Raymond, good to have you here, mate. Good to have you. I didn't even notice you earlier. Oh well. Yes, I'm not firing on all four cylinders, unfortunately, tonight. I crave fermented foods and lemon juice like crazy, but now when I recovered from H. pylori, I can't even think on sauerkraut, etc., and lemon juice. I don't put it on fish anymore. Fair enough. There you go. So you fix the H. pylori, great. Yeah. So I love it on fish with butter. But I put the butter first, and then I put the lemon juice on top. Just I like the combination. But I've always liked lemons. I was eating into them like that. So for me, but I've turned off sauerkraut completely, to be honest. I haven't had sauerkraut for ages. But I'm glad to hear that you've resolved that issue. Great. It's great news. The tartar comes through the saliva. I have most of the build-up from salival glands. Bacteria do nothing. Yeah, well, an oral microbiome does have an effect on some of these saliva secretions and stuff like that. It's not. There's an interaction. We can't think in reductionist terms in that regard. But whether oxalates make it worse or not, or what drives one, that I've just got question marks. I'm still up in the air about that. There you go. Little things that's oxalates. First went Carnivore, also to sensitivity, came and went. Heavy tartar stopped for about a year and is currently back again. Okay. Interesting experiences that people are having. Yeah, me neither. So yeah, look, the only anecdotes that I can think of is I started noticing when I started munching on bones, like chicken bones and stuff like that, you know, the hyaluronic acid at the ends, you know, the sort of tips and all that, you know, the jaw compression and all that, you know, chewing things a bit stronger and all that rather than swallowing, being a chewer rather than a swallower. God, that even sounds bad. I need some. Anyway, Alex is probably right. Bedtime, Harry. God, you're not making sense, and saying crude things as well. Oh, Dave, you're here as well. Good to see you there, mate. And George, yeah, g'day, mate. Good to have you here. Who else? Oggy, g'day, mate. And Jonathan's making a few remarks, and that's about it. Yeah, it's one of those things. It is common in carnivores. Dog knows it too. Okay. Yep. I do actually, you know, floss and stuff like that, and brush and floss, and so maybe the flossing is keeping mine down. So, you know, you see tribal people, you know, using little picks, like little wooden picks, and cleaning their teeth. So maybe you need to do that. Was that video, the MTH Jafar? Maybe you need to do things. Yes, I had a history of kidney stones as well. Lovely things. When I was doing keto, 5 years, 4 kidney stone issues. Wonderful. Nice, painful. Well, that's good. You're not getting the sensitivity. Yeah, I used to be a smoker as well, I know. Yeah. I'm sort of, because if I don't brush my teeth, don't clean them, and try to keep them, they will come dark because of all the coffee I drink as well. So yeah, I know what you mean. So I'm a bit of a clean the things. Bone broth makes the tartar worse. Yeah, usually people do say that, you know, the gelatinous or gelatin, or, you know, the sort of too much of those aminos that are involved in collagen that tend to have that effect on people. I don't know whether it's a regulatory thing or just a derangement that hasn't been resolved. So not sure on that. I get mixed messages from people, and, you know, when you get inverse relationships, you say, well, it's probably not the driver. There may be something else that we're missing. And I think we probably are missing something. Yeah, obviously, it does come from the saliva, and that's where, you know, oxalic acid can actually, from the saliva, go into the tartar itself. So, you know, it, in that regard, what that study was saying, but there's a difference between saying it's causal or it's just sort of associated. Most of these things are associated, and we haven't really worked out all this relationship yet. Oh, Nathan's there as well. G'day, Nathan. Yeah, it is bloody hard to mix. Dad has it with yogurt. That's how he has his leucine. So Dad mixes the leucine in with the yogurt, because he tried it with water and said, I can't actually make this mix. And I said, Dad, it doesn't mix. You got to consume it with water. With cream or with yogurt. And so he said, bugger it, I'm going to use yogurt. And I said, fine. I said, in the evening, you usually do your exercises, don't you? He goes, yeah. Well, then put in your yogurt, your last meal, and you'll basically get the muscle protein synthesis effect magnified. So perfect. And so he goes, good. So, and luckily he's quite muscular. So even though he's got this, the legs sort of quite swollen and has difficulty walking, he gets up, walks to the toilet, walks back, and one of the nurses, I was there, she was walking behind him just to make sure he doesn't fall over. Like, don't worry. I mean, I was sitting down, I just wasn't worried. I said, he's not going to fall down. He hasn't fallen down. He'll, he's like his father, a mountain goat, used to go up the side of a mountain when he was in his late age. I'm talking about in his 60s, he used to just go up the hillside, and still, when he was in his 80s, still coming down the hillside in pitch dark, coming down from the top village down to the main road where he had his own place that he lived in. So a little home, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, go on. Think about grandfather. I'll start crying. I do miss him. Anyway, not a problem, Jonathan. Okay. Okay. Get a conical tooth X-ray. So it shows bacterial infection that you don't even feel. Okay. Well, bacteria get everywhere. It's sort of a concentration, and the type of bacteria that gets into that area that can be problematic and inflame. So, as I said, some bacteria can be beneficial. So, and they can get everywhere, nooks and crannies, viruses and protozoa and everything. It's sort of the derangement that can cause these issues. Just want to mention I'm speaking with Bart today, recorded on training and nutrition. Keep your eyes peeled for what is uploaded. Good day. Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, so people, do consider that never get this right. And I will pin that to the top, Jonathan, so people can see it. There you go. Hi, Harry. In Australia, the Earth is used as a conductor. Every main switchboard has an Earth neutral link, so any imbalance in 3 phase through the Earth. I wonder what impact this has on. From what I know, look, there is some level of dirty electricity, but it's not a big problem. So I wouldn't be worried too much about it. Rajesh, how are you, mate? Yep, you asked me that before. Yep, and when it comes to histamines, really, taurine is the thing that actually, over time, sorts histamines out in the system and brings it under control via inflammasome. I did a video on that. On the sort of the metabolite that resets the microbiome. So I should probably put it in brackets: histamines and spermidine, just to basically try and get a bit more people to watch that damn thing. Red light district. God, you make me yawn, Harry. I know. Sorry. Can't help it. Can't help it. Yes. Yeah, I can. I can. You are running on. You're a V8. Yeah, look, I'd either use yogurt or I would use cream. When I was doing, I'm currently not doing leucine, but when I was doing leucine, because I'm only exercising once a week now, I just don't find the reason for it. Yeah, I was putting it in cream because that was the only way I could actually consume it. You just forget it. Water it's like a powder. It just doesn't. It's like it's hydrophobic. It just will not combine. And so pretty much it combines better with fat. That's why Dad would combine it. He puts his evening taurine, evening leucine in his yogurt, mixes it up, and that's how he has it. He enjoys it. That's the main thing. George. Call Saladino Salah, which means infidel in Italian. I saw it in a museum while in Italy recently. Okay. Okay, HD. We've got to be careful nowadays. YouTube with its censor board and all that. You remember what happened to Bart? So yeah, it's yeah. I like your sentiment. I'll leave it at that. Dave, mate, are you here as well? I didn't even bloody see you. God, you are late. You are late. Oh boy, you're definitely late. Distilled water vapor runs through activated carbon at 24C, removes many ppm deuterium. So Gary's going to build are you going to build a device for us? God, you're going to become my best friend. I'll send you my bottles, recycled bottles. Harry, are you still planning to do the taurine and neurological issue interview with Pim? I'll have to get back to Pim and talk to her about it. So, yeah, I've with a lot of other things happening in my life currently, I've forgot all about it. And she said she was going to focus on a couple of other things she wanted to, and said we'll do it at a later stage, but never got back to me. So I may have to contact her and remind her and ask her when are we likely to do it, and I'll let you know in a fortnight's time. But if we do it any earlier between now and the next fortnight, then yes, it may happen, but may not. Don't know. You mean I got to the bottom of the actual live stream? God, how did I manage that? Half asleep and I'm actually going to do one with Joey as well, the young bloke. So I just had to cancel the previous one because something came up family-wise. And so, yeah, I'm going to try and and he couldn't do the next one because he was sort of involved. And so hopefully next weekend, I may be able to get an opportunity to do one with Joey. And so, yeah, and trying to promote his channel as well in that regard. Anyway, and he I think wants to ask me a whole lot of questions, and about a whole lot of different things, aspects, because he does subscribe, he does follow me. And so, yeah, in that regard, D-Box, you're late. I'm about to shut the channel, the live stream down. It's 3.5 hours and it's 10 o'clock here and I'm nearly falling asleep because I've just really, with Dad being in hospital and all that, I just haven't been myself. Barbados, thoughts on eating a tablespoon of gelatin per day, unsweetened? Don't bother unless you want oxalates, because too much gelatin can cause oxalates. So we held back. Time for bed, Harry. Yeah, I think it is. It definitely is. Yeah. So Barbados, no, you don't need it. You only need protein, and then the enzymes will take the amino acids that will go into the amino pool, and your enzymes will then build and construct everything that you need in the body. That's how it's supposed to work. We just need these good amino acid pools to basically do that by eating enough meat. We don't need these gelatin and all that. They're incomplete proteins sources and all that. Yeah. If you want to have like a low sugar gelatin, just as a treat, fine. But do you need this sort of stuff? No. So you get the gelatinous material from the bones and around the bones and stuff like that. Nor on that, it's just as good without any potential oxalate side effects. So anyway, guys, appreciate you all being here. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the support. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Please share my videos. Please check stuff out. There's a whole lot of playlists out there that there may be subject matters you're interested in. Check the playlists out. Get the information. And then there's the featured channels that I've got. If you haven't subscribed to any of them, please subscribe as well. So take care, guys. I will see you in a fortnight's time. And hopefully with, Dad's situation sort of sorting itself out, Mira not on my back about her business and sort of, so my partner, I've had to, in the last couple of weeks, I've been sorting out her business finances, cash flow, inventory management, and a whole lot of other things that I've been training her up for, and explaining things and getting her to measure things more precisely so she can run her business better. So anyway, so that's been fun and games, doing a lot of that sort of stuff and teaching her some accounting principles, how to apply those properly in her business. And so hopefully she's taken them to heart and she'll start running with them. Yes. Anyway. Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it, mate. Always a pleasure, Gary. Take care, mate. You're welcome. And take care, Alex, as well. Lisa, is that what? Is that COP? Okay, that's silence in Greek. Are you Greek? Just asking. Because on here, actually, you can't see the eyes, but in the actual chat thing, I can actually see the eyes. Yes. Okay. So there you go. Ευχαριστώ που είσαι μέλος του κανάλι μου και ευχαριστώ για την υποστήριξη. Oh, okay. Είναι το επώνυμά σου. Okay. Δεν το γνώριζα. Κάθε ένας έχει τα διάφορα. Μόνο τα παλιά επώνυμα ήταν όλα θέμα. Παρακαλώ, χάρη, με βοήθησες. Κανένα πρόβλημα. Αυτός είναι ο λόγος το κανάλι μου, να βοηθήσω ο κόσμο όσο μπορώ. Και εγώ πέρασα τα δικά μου. Anyway, that was a good stream, and good night, Annika, as well. And see you, Chrissa, and I'm glad that it did help. And Stefan, you're welcome as well. And I'm out of here to hit the sack. I just remembered I didn't go to my dad's place to clean out the kitty litter. Oh, God. Oh, well. Hopefully the cat hasn't done anything outside the kitty litter. Hopefully. Oh, well, that's going to be fun tomorrow. Anyway, it'll be amusing. Anyway, good night, guys. Yep, Anna, many thanks to you as well. And I am out of here. See yous.